You're listening to Well, I Laughed, Part 2 of In the Bag, How to Hide a Painting.
Go on, get it.
Go on.
Don't you know we don't love you anymore?
What are you referencing? The old Yeller Shakespeare?
100% what I'm referencing right now. Well, you know, you're lucky I'm doing any kind of bit at all. I sent you guys a very funny video from my classroom today.
I watched it.
No response in the group chat.
Oh, we watched it.
Oh, thanks. I didn't know that. I'm teaching 3 more periods being like, can't wait for all my friends to love it. Oh, no one's responded. My phone's cold right now. It's been 3 hours.
If we don't respond, that in no way implies we have not read it. That most likely implies we read it, looked at each other, acknowledged it, and we're like, that serves as a reply to the group chat since you are also in the group.
I hear you. I understand you. That in no way implies that that's going to settle my own anxiety.
When we went to that Shakespeare thing, it was Old Yeller and what? What was the 2 movies? Do you remember?
Are we talking about improv Shakespeare?
Yeah.
It was not Old Yeller.
No, not that. He's talking about the Shakespeare that you didn't go
the
to
one you, me, Lydia, and Jacob went to.
while I was gone.
At the place over yonder.
That's really...
Oh.
We had Thai food afterwards.
Oh God, you're reaching in deep into a memory right now. Was it at Infinite Monkey Theorem?
No, it was at the tiny theater that's just like you walk in, there's the little forum, and then you go into the black box theater. And it was all improv, and we watched 2 different improv sets, and then someone came out and did a large, long, Old Yeller improv set with some other show.
Oh, I know what you're talking about now. It's not, yes, okay. No, it was Old Yeller, but then also, they don't take him out, and then I think, does he become like a cyborg at a certain part?
Yeah, I'm trying to
it was
remember,
great.
because
Cujo?
Does it end as a musical?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm remembering it.
The fact that you just said all of those absolutely insane sentences and also simultaneously had no memory of it 30 seconds ago is astonishing.
Listen, he was like, no, it was me, you, Jacob, and Lydia. And I was like, that 4 has never been on a side adventure ever. But we have been, yes. That was a great
It
time.
was a great time.
I kind of really loved that.
Thrown out of my chair.
And here's the thing, what's so funny,
Yeah.
well, I'm a puncher when I laugh.
No, what? You've never once done that.
I, at times, have dragged Maya closer and then punched her.
The fact that I'm on wheels, he's really abused.
Yeah, I have. I've used that and you
That's
a little
fine.
bit to
Yeah,
a
it's
degree. No, I just love that about Lydia. She is such a lover of comedy.
Of the arts.
Yeah, exactly. You know how everyone's like, no, I don't want to go to a comedy show. Lydia's like, we are going to an improv show. Let's go now.
And it was quite good.
It was good, yeah.
And then we went and had Thai afterwards.
That happened on a Friday evening.
What was I
A cold
doing?
and rainy Friday
I
evening.
think you were out of town, because I got a text from Grant.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna
15
say,
minutes before the show started. I was like, hey, you want to
Let's
come?
go.
I think I was in Vegas.
I think that sounds right.
Work trip. Yes.
I think I was in Vegas.
Grant was kind enough to invite me, and I was like, sure, I can pants off.
Kind enough to... Casey, you're a part of the friend group. I want you to know that,
And part
right?
of my life. But it was before we had the mega group chat. The 8-person group chat.
There's so many different group chats now.
I know.
So
Well, there's that one
confusing.
and Interview with a Vampire.
There's Interview with a Vampire. There's one without you in it now for your birthday party. There's
funny.
one without Hayden in it
We need to
for
kill
some reason.
both of those.
No. There's
New
one,
mission unlocked
There's
this
one
weekend.
I think without Danny. 'Cause
Yeah, that
Sophie,
sounds
yeah.
right. Yeah. Because for Danny's birthday gift.
And then there's one with just the iPhone users, I'm pretty sure.
Good. You mean the only one that really matters.
Which is
The one we never use that one.
We need to bring it back.
Use that one for videos.
But then Sophie and Danny won't see it. And what's the point if Danny won't see it?
That's getting fixed later this year.
One of my speech students was like, Mr. iPhone or Android? And I go, iPhone. And the student goes, yeah, Mr. Well, not everyone can afford iPhone. That's why I'm an Android person. And I go, I know. That's why I prefer iPhones. Know your friends. I said what I said. All of it was correct. That was brave. My Android slander is the only thing that actually makes him go anymore.
You have my hair tie still in those pants. Yeah, I don't want to find a different hair tie.
No, you're right. My sentence was weird.
You have a hair tie in your pants.
You still have my hair tie in your pants.
Yeah. In his pants pocket.
Why?
Because we just did a photo shoot, and I realized I had a hair tie on my wrist
I just
halfway through.
Wasn't sure if you were just keeping
Yeah, just have hair ties in his pants.
Do you also keep... What's so funny is that was the least natural thing I have ever seen you do in the history of ever. Like, so she tried to give a seductive little wink.
Oh, it was intentionally not seductive.
Okay, I was like, did your eyelid catch your mascara? Like, what's going on there?
I had a friend in college who, I might have actually told you this already, who couldn't wink for like the first couple years. Like, I mean, she could try, but it was always like half a blink, half wink. And then she worked on it so hard because she got so sick of getting like made fun of for this wink that she could like baby doll close one eye. It was horrible.
Just all like creepy and shit.
Both of them too. It was fucking scary. I have a video of it somewhere. Holy shit. Okay, thank you.
Nice.
I want to play a game with you.
Oh, fun. Okay.
Which is why I required the hair tie.
I also love the idea that people have just listened to part 1 and they're like, part 2, what happens? And it's this conversation.
By the way, if you haven't listened to last week's episode, this is going to be part 2 of the story Grant was telling last week. So don't listen to this if you haven't listened to episode 50.
Right.
50?
T2.
52. Yeah, this is 53. Oh my God. Look at my hairstyle. Correct.
Okay.
I got my hair and makeup professionally done today for a photo shoot. Guess how many bobby pins are in my hair? And then we're going to find out.
Like right now?
Yeah, because I don't know.
With your like bun situation?
Yeah.
I'm going to guess 6.
Okay, we're going to turn to the camera. Let the camera see? I don't know if the camera can see.
It's like a commercial for Bump It from the 90s.
Yeah, a little frizzy because I laid down with it.
It's also really unfair to ask a bald person who's never once dated a woman seriously how many bobby pins are in her hair. I'm like, you could tell me 100. I'd be like, yeah, that sounds right. No
I bet
hairspray?
Casey also wouldn't have any idea. Casey, how many bobby pins do you think are in my hair?
The way I feel like I'm just like at home in like somebody's family reunion, just shouting upstairs.
We're taking bets. I'm not gonna bet because I have a big idea.
Of what they put in your head.
Yeah, because I was there.
About 30.
Whoa.
30?
I said 6.
About 30. Okay, viewer, lock in your guess now in the comment section. I may be fast forwarding through this a bit in the episode.
Do I just like kind of QVC it and talk about it?
Yeah, I mean you can if you want to. 3.
So far I'm right, more so than Casey is. You 30?
4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Is that 6?
Price is Right rules. I'm still ahead. We have to get to
7.
31 before Casey's right.
7. 13. 14. 15. 16. 19. 22. 25. 29.
Were they trying to hide it?
I'm telling you, I've been around this block a few times.
Why on earth did they give you 30 bobby pins?
There's a 31st one in here that I can't quite get out.
Price is Right rules.
31.
Yeah, all right.
Oh, 32.
Casey wins. Actual retail price, 32.
I'm pretty proud of that.
That was pretty good. I was gonna guess like mid 20s. Oh, 33.
I'm like horrified. A lot of times I'm like, haha, being bald's fun. Now I'm like, oh my god, being bald's the only logical sense. And you could fit 32, 33 in there. Oh, also, last night I saw an old clip of Price is Right. Stay with me. And it was Bob Barker, and I just felt like I was 5 years old again. Because you'd always watch it when you got to stay home sick.
Yeah.
Anyways, one of the guys was trying to guess the price, and he gives a very specific number. He was like 24.31, and they were like, why on earth would you guess such a specific number? And he goes, I saw last week's episode, and I know exactly how much it is.
That's hilarious. Oh god, that feels so good. I was like gonna take them all out before you came, and I was like, I have an idea.
I think this is maybe the first time in all of the episodes we've recorded that I have nothing to add or say to this entire experience. I didn't shave today, which is why hat.
How's a hat?
It's fine.
I'm gonna brush this bad boy out.
She brushed. I'm gonna update you on how my day was.
Yeah, tell me.
So, it's raining. It rarely ever rains in Denver. Bye, Casey. It rarely ever rains in Denver. So I came home and took such a glorious nap. It's also Friday, so double glorious nap. I realized yesterday that I was off balance when I came home and just ate like an entire thing of mac and cheese. And I want to make sure this is clear. Nothing wrong with eating an entire thing of mac and cheese. I just had not gone home planning on eating an entire thing of mac and cheese, and then just kind of like consumed it like a house ghost. It was like, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna pause Modern Family because I gotta go ahead and sleep some of this off.
I have to think for a
And
moment.
I think I was maybe a wee tired and was just kind of seeking comfort and hibernation.
That's fair. Casey and I both almost napped after we got home today. I don't know what happened there.
You guys had the actual exciting day. So, friends, as you're listening, don't know how much content we've given you so far, but as you're listening, we recorded part 1, Night at the Museum.
Yeah.
48 hours ago.
Yes.
And so, like, truly not a lot has happened in my life since then. We're on the cusp of the weekend. But you guys had something fun and exciting. You got married.
Again! We did another styled shoot. I have a few pictures that I can show you. I don't have a ton. I've only gotten a couple back because, I mean, it happened like a few hours ago. There's like 5 of them you can scroll through. But the venue was so pretty. I got to wear this, like, amazing dress. That's
Are you guys
also
actually
like
outside in this?
Yeah.
Sorry, just like great lighting on a day that was like very overcast.
Overcast lighting is way better than sun lighting.
Is it really?
Every time the sun came out, all the photographers went back inside.
I got all grumpy.
Yeah, a little bit.
Sorry, I'm currently zooming in on the charcuterie board. Did someone get to take it home?
It was mostly gone.
Oh, by the end of
by
the shoot.
time the shoot was over. Yeah. But we did another styled shoot, like the one that we did back in March. That was like Meow Wolf themed, and this one was just like a summery vibe. But I got to take this like. Yeah. Well,
It's followed up by like Maya's mugshot, essentially.
there's like a content creator there, and so she took like behind the scenes videos of like all of us getting ready, and then like the shoot itself, and so Grant just made the jump.
It's just like a bunch of gorgeous photos. Like in one, she's like laying in the grass. Another one, she's in like this ancient kind of Greek like pillars kind of thing. And the third one is like, if you've seen this woman, she's wanted by customs enforcement.
Makeupless. Looks like I'm almost hairless. My hairline is
The amount of things that you look like in this photo, none of them are
good?
My good friend and podcast co-host.
okay. Well, that's just a little rude.
Well, I'm
just kidding. That doesn't look like me.
Do you know what you look like? Have you seen the movie, I think like Suffragette, starring Alice Paul, about the women's right to vote here in the
don't think
U.S.?
so.
Okay, so at one point she gets thrown into prison.
Nice.
And it's just like gray hair back,
Yeah.
kind of. I mean, obviously you're still gorgeous, but not
I
the
know.
styled self that I'm used to seeing out of you. Do better. No, I'm totally kidding.
No, that's fair. I'm fucking exhausted.
Was it
though.
kind of nice, though, being able to leave the house knowing not only do I not need to, I'm actually not supposed to do my own makeup because they want to style it a specific way.
It is very nice
Yeah.
because they also like want you to show up with like completely unstyled, clean hair, and
Right.
like I don't typically go with clean hair just because when my hair is super clean, it doesn't style well.
Okay.
And so I told her that I had like rinsed it out the night before, whatever. But anyway, I literally just got to like roll out, and I also don't provide my own clothing, so all I brought was like my shoes.
And so she's just
And
naked,
me.
no makeup,
Yep.
shoes on,
Yep.
outside the venue.
Exactly. But the dress that I'm wearing actually was like completely see-through kind of underneath
Okay.
it. And so when I went to go try it on yesterday, I didn't know that they were going to put me in a see-through dress.
Okay.
The issue that I had the last time I went to go try on a dress for a styled shoot was that the corset top was a little see-through. And
okay.
so some of the pictures you could like, if you knew what you're looking
What
at,
to look
you
for.
could see my areolas, like for sure. Like at least the color.
Wasn't expecting to hear the word
Areolas.
areola. It's been kind of like a nice little slow start to today's episode.
I thought I'd-
That's a big word.
I had the option to say nipple, and I decided not
Jose
to.
or areola.
But then this time, my girls were covered, but my bright blue panties that I
Ooh,
decided to
nice,
wear
nice.
on display. And so I was like, I can't get it right.
I once again did not notice, but
oh no, you can't
wasn't
see
looking.
it in those pictures because I'm wearing. I had the option. I had the option to show butt crack, which is never something I have had to struggle with before.
Sorry, I was in the middle of a sip, and I very much could have drowned.
I
What
know.
do you mean the option to show butt crack?
It's like you could wear like a thong, and then your butt crack is like viewable
okay.
through the thing here.
Is that the new thing right now? Is show a little butt?
Kind of like some of the celebrities
Fascinating.
are doing it in like
It just sounds
red
like
carpet looks. I didn't get
It sounds
a
like something
close-up.
you would say to like your gay friends when you get ready to go to Pride. You're like, you do have the option to show a little butt crack if you want.
Yeah, but when I asked this
Gorgeous
morning,
dress.
I know the dress is stunning. The veil
yeah,
was
but
stunning,
blue.
but you
Yep,
can
you're right.
absolutely
Okay.
just see the entire underwear.
I did look for the blue line. Did not look at your areolas. I know it's not this
They were
photo,
covered.
but still, gorgeous dress.
I know, they
gorgeous,
were so
gorgeous.
pretty.
Oh God.
What?
Are you familiar with the phrase "gorgeous, gorgeous girls love soup"?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, dear friends, going to keep the person anonymous.
It's usually
out
pretty
of-
obvious.
One of our friends a couple of years ago went through a really tough breakup, and we thought they were handling it just fine on the ski trip we all were on, where we hot tubbed for what ended up being like 3 hours, which is like not good for your health. Neither
No.
is the amount of alcohol we had drank. I mean, not like an obscene amount, but like we were in the hot tub, there's conversation, there's stories, we're having a great time. There's like a little cooler just outside the hot tub. And so we come back inside, and 95% of this party is like, oh, ha ha ha. Like I'm just a bit more, lighter on my feet than I thought I was. And our friend comes out of the bathroom and is sobbing. And we're like, oh no. And then immediately I go into mama bear mode, and
Yeah.
I'm like, this person just needs more food in them, so that way they have some kind of base to go off
Yep.
of now. But they're like really upset, and they like don't really want to eat anything.
I don't wanna.
And all we had at the time was actually a really delicious lasagna soup that one of our other friends had made. So we're sitting there, we're like glistening, and we're like feeding water. And then at one point, I like put my hand on the bowl and I go, gorgeous, gorgeous girls love soup. And then I like kind of like push it towards them in a not so subtle sign of like, now you need to eat something.
That's beautiful.
You looked gorgeous in those
Thank
photos.
you.
Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous girls love showing their areolas.
Or butt crack, I guess. I don't know. I was like, I asked Casey the
Now, do you
night
have to
before.
pay more for butt crack, or is it kind of...
Yeah, you do. You have to be in the.
You always got to pay more for butt crack. I bet it's a subscription service, isn't it?
is.
Everything's a subscription service these days.
Yeah, we got a lot of compliments, and I don't know if that was just them hyping us up, but they were like, "You guys actually know what you're doing," and I was like, "They think we know what we're doing." Casey, don't let them know.
Well, because you're models. You're professional models now.
Basically, we haven't
We're
gotten
branching
paid
out.
yet, but we're working
Are you
on it.
supposed to get paid, or is it just
No.
more like come have a fun day?
It's called TFP, trade for either print or portfolio.
Oh,
And so
nice.
most of the vendors that will like supply stuff will do it TFP so that they get free photos
Nice.
from all the
Okay.
photographers. Yeah.
The way, if I was in a wedding dress for like a photo shoot,
Oh, I just.
the way I'd have to fight the urge to like run down the sidewalk to be like, I can't marry him, right? Like just
I tried
be
to do
dramatic
that
for a
with
second.
the last dress that I was in, but it was so big that it was hard to like carry. But I did it for a second, and I was
Right,
like,
like,
that was really
run
great.
away.
This one
You're
I
at the Winter Palace.
couldn't because the rep from the bridal like salon was there helping us like get dressed, and then she
Sure.
stayed and like made sure we knew how to pick up the train and was
Kept
like
good care of the goods.
yeah, and she was like, yeah, you can pose her on the stairs, but she can't walk because that carpet on the stairs is really like a dirt magnet, and that'll get the dress dirty.
That's really interesting.
And then it was the same with like the ground. Some people wanted me to like walk down the like fake aisle, and I was like, I can't.
I'm sorry, mother won't let me.
I was also in 5-inch heels, so I was like, don't make me.
Oh no, on that topic, it's gone. Never mind.
Oh,
That's so rare for me.
yeah.
But it's like not there at all, even a
It's
little
Gonzo.
bit. No, there it is.
There it
Just
is.
gotta give me a second.
Gonzo
so I've
Garbanzo.
recently been rewatching some of my favorite rom-coms from the late 90s and early 2000s.
Which ones?
My Best Friend's Wedding is so good.
is
And
good.
I loved it as a child. And I've been rewatching it recently to be like, but for why? What part of like 10-year-old me identified with this movie?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen it?
Maybe once a long time ago with my parents.
There's a moment where Julia Roberts' character, to try to make her best friend jealous, because she's like in love with him.
Obviously.
Spoiler alert, but it came out before many of your lifetimes, so like, not my fault.
It's a classic, like 10 Things I Hate About You. Like, not 10 Things I Hate About You, but what's the other one with Matthew
Fat Greek
McConaughey?
Wedding.
No.
No, it's just my other favorite rom-com from the early 2000s.
That one is good.
Matthew McConaughey, 10 Things I Hate About You. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
That one, yep.
Love it. A lot of 10s back then.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yes.
Julie Roberts, to
Yes.
try to make her best friend jealous, invites her gay best friend out, and he lands and he's like, I'm here to help, what do you need? And she's like, George and I are getting married. And George, like in that moment, finds out what lie he and Julia Roberts are telling, and then he commits to the bit so hard.
Everyone needs a gay best friend.
100%. And I think that's actually why I liked it, because the peak of him committing to the bit is they are at the like pre-wedding like bridal brunch, right? Where it's like bride and groom and like bride's entire family, and they're like, George, tell us about how you and Jules met. And he just tells this like hilarious story,
Yeah.
but then he ends it by singing the song, The Moment I Wake Up. Right?
Yes.
And then he
Yes.
gets like everyone else at the table to sing it. And then because it's a late 90s movie, the entire restaurant starts singing it. And if you look in the back, there are 2 lobsters dancing along. It's a seafood restaurant. I should have mentioned that a little bit sooner in the story. It just brought me, the entire scene brings me so much joy. And then like the cherry on top of your Shirley Temple is the 2 dancing lobsters in the back. And that's what really Anne's my Hathaway.
That was the gayest thing you've ever said. Holy shit. Oh my god.
I said something, I can't remember what at this point, but I said something to some students yesterday, 2 seniors, and they both really laughed, and they kind of gave me that look where they were like, okay, Mister's got some jokes. And so seeing that, sensing that, I pounced and I go, no one ever gives me credit for how funny I am. I just keep winning awards for how good of a teacher I am. Killed again, batting 100. That was yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Continuing to be everybody's favorite problem.
Wow, truer words have never once
I just
been
don't want you to
spoken.
feel like you have to wait for your birthday to be other people's problems.
You don't.
No, I don't.
Do you tell people that, though?
I mean, the kids asked me this week how my birthday was, and I was like, honestly, like pretty subdued, just like the traditional 3 days of celebration, and that was it.
For whose culture?
My culture. The gay one.
Okay.
One at your house, one outside of your house, a third one just yourself.
Fair enough, honestly. I can't even fucking argue
If
with that.
you're not celebrating your birthday that way, but for why?
But for why?
If you're like, well, because of like a trauma trigger point, I don't like that much attention on me. Heard, seen, validated, totally fine. But if you're just like, I don't want to be seen as too extra, why? You don't want to be seen too extra in front of your closest friends?
If it's something that you want, then you want
I also
it.
think I strike a really fun, hot, sexy balance in our friend group where it's like, here are the social activities I have planned for us this weekend. But it's not like first we're going to go to my favorite brunch place and then we're going to go to my it's like, like I don't think the activities are designed entirely around me. It's just like, here are the activities I want to do for my birth, which
It's
is, I
all
guess, kind of
alcohol,
decided.
yeah.
I mean, okay, not the third day. That's mostly cheese.
So things you can get chemically addicted to. What was your point?
And kind of probably a precursor to the mac and cheese incident that happened yesterday.
I don't know if you remember when we were at Gold Point for your birthday. So you left Edgar, me and Casey came home.
Right.
And then Kelsey and co left for the other bar. I got mac and cheese before we left
Gold
at
Point?
Gold Point, because do you remember the last time we went there?
Oh, I remember how delicious it was.
Oh, it was so
Absolutely.
fucking good.
Yes.
Yeah, I
and
went
it
and-
comes out in a little aluminum tin thing.
I went and bought a mac and cheese, and I think they thought I was gonna eat it there because they put it on a little like paper plate, and I like made sure it was all paper, and then I walked
That you weren't gonna
immediately out the door. The way that I know that it wasn't weird, is that the bouncer didn't even look twice at me. So, I'm familiar.
What's so funny is just like the difference in like I have never once eaten at a single bar ever, except for one, and it closed because of the pandemic. and it is this thing that like, I kind of like still struggle to get over. There was a restaurant bar attached to the Safeway in Capitol Hill. Okay, so you're parking in a grocery store parking lot to walk into this restaurant bar. That was clearly something else before a gay owner bought it. Okay, the gay owner bought it, changed the name, hung up one pride flag,
and then
end of
opened
changes. So you could go to this place and get like onion rings and a hamburger and also the strongest gin and tonic of your entire life. I watched them pour an entire glass of gin once, just gin, and then
I
like
wonder
a little,
why
like,
they
fuzz.
closed.
Well, I mean, a lot of reasons.
The first thing you learn on Bar Rescue with John Taffer is that overpouring is the number one cause.
The way I would have not had any context for the reality show. Anyways, the bar was called Sugar Daddies, and I
Sugar
miss
Father,
it. Sorry, Sugar Father, listener episode 51. And I miss it. I miss it every day of my life. Again, one of those places where I never saw it in the daylight, and it actually usually started off as like the first stop on the night, because he was like, I know a super cool place in a grocery store parking lot for like your Saturday evening 1 a.m. final destination kind of thing.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
That feels like it feels like a speakeasy almost, but in like a very like dive bar-y way.
It was a speakeasy in like a gay version where it's like, this is a gay bar. And it was like, sorry, the one last change that he also made to change the name.
Yeah.
Put up one pride flag. Took off the bartender's shirts.
There it is. There it is. Are you sure he didn't make him take off the pants and then wear just like a G-string?
Yeah, because I mean, when they had to bring drinks outside, they were still in a grocery store parking lot.
Sounds like their problem.
Don't know how we got here.
I truly do not either.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So glad we're really keeping the thread going.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share? Do you want me just to jump straight into tonight's story?
What do I want to share? I don't know.
You should think at least one more thing, because it's going to take me a second to find my notes.
Oh, fuck. Okay. I worked with another model today. I'm not going to say any like names or whatever.
But was she really nice?
She was quite nice. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were all nice. Everyone was great. But she had this story. She does a lot of like styled shoots, and she was the solo model bride. But that also means that she like doesn't have a partner that like models with her, and so she got like kind of assigned one at a previous gig.
Okay.
And it was just this guy. She said he was represented by a talent agency or something, and they're not actually together. They had never met before.
Okay.
And she wanted to know how tall he was so that she could bring the right heels for the dress so she wouldn't look like too tall or too short. And he was like, well, why don't you just like FaceTime me? She was in traffic. And so I think she like tried to call him over Instagram, and then he was like, no, here's my number. Like actually FaceTime me. And she was like, okay. Anyway, like 20 minutes later, she finally was like, so how tall are you? And he was like, oh, I'm 6'2". And she was like, great, see you tomorrow or something like that.
Quick.
Yeah. And he like invited her to spend the night at his house because he lived closer to where they were shooting, whatever. And she was like, no.
I mean, this is a shooter's shot right here.
And then at the shoot, obviously like they need to act kind of coupley, but it's never really an expectation that you kiss someone that you're not in a relationship with. Especially for these styled shoots, like you can get close, you can do other stuff.
Right.
But he like kissed her without really asking her. And in front of like at these styled shoots, you're often posing for like 3 to 4 cameras at a time. So like she can't really do anything.
Right.
And at some point, the photographers were directing him to like kind of caress her neck in like a shot, and he like full on like kind of choke grabbed her, and they were like, no, not like that. And then I think luckily the photographers,
what kind of thing do you think we're filming here?
And I think some of the
coming up her areolas.
God, some of the photographers picked up on her anxiety, and so they ended up being able to like pull her, and she was like, I'm never working with him again. If he touches me one more time, I'm gonna kick him.
Right.
Her quote, not mine.
Sure.
Kick him. I would have punched him in the balls, but whatever. And then afterwards, you get the content back. It's TFP, right? For the most part, he might have been paid. I'm not sure. But so she got the photos back. He got the photos back. You're allowed to technically use them however you want.
Right.
The motherfucker posted a picture with them.
No.
It was like a carousel on TikTok with them that was like a woman of God, or like a woman of God would never, like, I've never dated a woman of God that's like, will treat me negatively or something like that. And it's like,
what?
Just like very like sad boy cry hour. And then the second slide is just one of the pictures of him alone, like kind of like dramatically looking out the window. Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah. And he like low-key implied that she had cheated on him, even though they were never even in a relationship.
Right. They are working professionals for a day.
Yeah. And then some people in the comments were like, wow, way to call out your like girl like that. And she had to go through and was like, I am not his girl.
Did he tag her in it?
No, I think
It got like sent to her or something.
It got sent to her. Either someone told him to take it down or she told him to take it down and he took it down. But it was like the audacity of men.
Yeah, men will literally fake an entire relationship.
She was telling us this story while we were getting our hair and makeup done, and it was silent in the room. Like, I had been talking to the makeup artist. She was getting her hair done because she knew the hairstylist, so she was like gabbing.
Sure.
And it was like me, the other model, the third model, and then like the makeup artist. We were like looking at each other like, oh my God. It was great. We love the drama.
I love niche tea in communities that you're not involved in.
Exactly.
There's been a lot of niche tea in my own personal professional life recently that I have had to tell them before we've started to record, because I'm like, I don't need everybody to know what's going on, but you're never gonna guess what happened.
Yeah, you have had some really niche.
It's been a weird week.
Period. It doesn't really feel like a week.
Well, then let's get into part 2.
Part 2.
So far untitled. I'm going to also share this at the start of part 2. I have in bold and then also in yellow highlighted. Add review section here. Did not go back. Add review section.
Before we get into it, in case you skipped all of the banter and you're now here for the story, if you haven't watched last week's episode 52, go back and listen to it, because it's the first part of the story and you're going to be very confused.
And there's a lot of like, and then da-da-da-da, but then and we get like theories involved and you meet some of the main characters.
Oh, yeah.
What do you remember from happening from 48 hours ago?
There's an art heist that surely happens. For sure.
Okay, so we know for a fact painting's not there anymore.
13 of them.
13 of them aren't there anymore.
13 of them. The studio based off of, not based off of, that woman opened. I can't remember her name, but she was like
Isabella Stewart Gardner.
Yeah, she was like here and then in Paris to cure her depression, and then she came back and then she opened the studio that's like kind of the American Louvre, but it's in Boston. And then one night she then threatened, no one shall move or change this entire museum ever, or it will burn to the ground, essentially. And so no one changed it, but they had to put AC in and then a security system. And then in the late 90s, somebody came in and like low-key broke in and stole a bunch of shit. And that's super not cool. But also it was one of the guards was like a little bit sus.
More than a little bit sus.
He had gone on a round. He had come back. And then he had like opened the door, which they like knew he had never done before. So they were like, why would he do that?
You're really catching your groove now. Nice. Okay, keep going.
I was in between Valley Girl and Transatlantic for like 2 seconds, and I've come back. And then 2 police officers come in and they're like, yo, let us in. And he's like, I don't know who you are, but sure.
Right.
Which is weird.
They were dressed as cops, so he was like, sure, cops, come on in.
Come on in.
Responding to an incident report that neither of us filed.
Yeah, and then they were like, get the other guard. And so he gets the other guard back from his round, and then one of the cops looks at guard number 1. I can't remember. I'm really bad at names. I can't remember his name either.
Randy Hellstand.
Yep. Nope. The other one.
Richard Abbott. And
they're like, don't we have a warrant out for your arrest? And then he stands up and gets away from the panic button, and then they're like, gentlemen, welcome to a robbery.
This is a robbery. Yeah, very good.
And then they tie them up in duct tape and put them in the basement, where they stay for 7 hours. And then the robbery lasts 81 minutes. And they all happen on the upper floor. Second floor. And they steal a lot of Rembrandts and a lot of other shit. And then also
$500 million worth of art.
But also like a lot of like unimportant, like not
like
important
gold finial
shit
from Napoleon.
Yeah, exactly. And a Chinese vase from very long time ago. But there's security, there's motion detectors at the entrances and exits of all the rooms, so the people who are looking back at it off of the hard drive, because the hard drive was like something that the thieves didn't think to take. Which
Right, because that's 1990.
Yeah, obviously. And they're kind of able to like watch as not watch, but like see the path of the robbers. But there's one painting stolen out of the Blue Room, and they can't figure out how it got stolen unless it was Richard Abbott. And so there's...
Because that alarm went off during his round before
during
the
his
robbers
round.
arrived.
And there wasn't another alarm. And then he sings a really sad song the Richard Abbott sings a really sad song to keep himself company until the next shift of guards appear. And
Nope, we're losing it there. Richard Abbott sings a really kind of ominous song in the basement as the robbery's happening.
Yeah.
And they now let's jump to art thief Miles Connor.
Art thief Miles Connor is like super cool dude.
Low-key kind of hot too.
Low-key kind of hot. We saw a picture of him. He plays guitar. He's like good friends with a lawyer who's also the road manager for Frank Sinatra and
Dionne
Warwick. And he had also been involved in another small art heist where a similar Chinese vase had been stolen.
And stole a Rembrandt in the middle of the afternoon one time from the MFA.
Just for funsies. And so people were like, was it him? And when we left off was that he's in prison, jail? I don't know.
So where we left off, very good. You did a
Thank
really
you.
nice job summarizing that. You can just go ahead and skip the last 3-hour episode that we did. No, please don't. I put a lot of time into this.
There's a lot more details than that.
Yes, very good.
Thank you.
So Miles Connor's in jail. They're like, okay, shit. Like, Boston, Massachusetts, preeminent art thief. Mm-hmm. We could absolutely get him for this. Preeminent, I think also works there.
Preeminent?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Like premier.
Premiere? Oh, okay.
Is in jail. And so he couldn't do it, but didn't he do it? And also, this is an important thing to remember about Miles Connor legacy as well. He had proven that at least some law enforcement agencies were willing to negotiate pretty bigly in exchange for stolen artwork. Because that's how Miles Connor had gotten a previous sentence reduced, was by giving back a Rembrandt he himself had stolen.
Right. Oh, I forgot about the mafia. There's a mafia guy. There's also theories about the Ireland Republican Army. Yeah.
There's lots of theories.
Yeah, I just...
The
I couldn't let it slide.
The thing that I want to focus on right now, and the thing that I think makes the most sense as to like who would steal it and why, is Miles Connor proved that Rembrandts and other fine pieces of art could essentially function as get out of jail free cards, which explains, that's what the movie calls it.
It's really funny.
I know. But essentially that like this organized crime city was like, oh, if we get a couple of these, then we get a little bit of immunity. There's a couple of things that are about to happen and that were happening at that time, but it helps explain why you would steal those paintings that are so famous to be like impossible to sell on the black market.
There's an episode of The Office where Michael goes bankrupt. It's the episode where he shouts, I declare bankruptcy! And the one who convinces him to do that is Creed, the most trustworthy of the characters. And he's like, him and Michael are having some like weird metaphor conversation about the game Monopoly, because he's like, I'm broke, like when you're broke in Monopoly it's over, or something like that. And they mentioned something about get out of jail free, but Creed's like, that game is so messed up, man. Get out of jail free cards aren't free. Those things cost thousands.
My favorite Creed line of all time is, I've been in a number of cults. You have more fun as a follower, but you make more money as the leader.
He's hysterical.
Okay, so let's jump into where I've officially started to write the
Yes.
notes. Right underneath the ad review section here.
Which you then assigned to me as a pop quiz.
I was like, well, Maya, feeling a little anxious? Let me help. You can also tell I'm a teacher, because here's the opening line to part 2. So we just learned
oh God.
how the art was stolen from the Gardner Museum one night in early 1990. However, plenty of criminals had cased the joint and had planned robberies in the past.
Oh.
In the 1970s, Miles Connor had looked into how to break into the museum several times. Some of his known associates admitted at one point that they unlocked a window that did not have an alarm and continued to check back weeks later to see if the window, to check out the window, and had found it unlocked and unnoticed. That, like, essentially the Gardner Museum's security team pretty lax when it comes to all of it.
Yeah.
The idea that you could just go unlock the window during the day and then break in later, I think is really curious, and then also shines more light on, like, was Richard Abbott involved or not? Like, if you can just truly unlock a window and then break in through a window in the middle of the night, why go through the trouble of, like, getting Richard Abbott to, like, let you in 2 double locked doors unless you are convinced that, like, the panic button would be pressed, you know?
Yeah, that's strange.
Paragraph 2. And then, in 1982, a man by the name of Louis Royce tries to rob the museum. He's part of a local gang, not even like an international one, just like the gang in the neighborhood of the Gardner Museum.
It's just your friendly gang.
And he knows how easy it is to snatch the work. He has a super simple plan. He's going to throw a gigantic smoke bomb into, like, the middle atrium area.
Yeah.
And then in the ensuing panic, take one of the paintings off the wall, walk out.
Yeah, that's not a good way to get 13 paintings, though.
Not a great way to get 13 paintings. Really funny, hilarious way to get one.
Yeah.
And roughly also the exact same strategy Miles Connor used to, like, steal the Rembrandt. Legitimately, Miles Connor tells the story of how he stole that Rembrandt years ago from the MFA. He goes, we had someone cause a distraction, and then I lifted up the artwork and, like, walked out. And I'm going to start using some of Miles Connor's words. He was like, eventually they realize what's happened, and this, like, army of guards comes charging at us to, like, try to get the Rembrandt back.
Yeah.
And I have a friend there who's helping me, and he just sprays the floor with Uzi bullets, like a little tiny machine gun, and it gets all of them to, like, back up. And then Miles Connor says this. He goes, and then there's this one Pole guy, like Polish, but, like, racially tinged because it's Boston, who just has a look in his eye like, not on my watch. Not on my watch.
Oh, no.
And charges Miles, grabs the painting, and obviously they're getting ready to shoot the guard. And Miles Connor is like, don't shoot the guard, because the difference between, like, art heist and first-degree murder is quite severe.
Yeah.
And so they're like, you can't shoot him, you can't shoot him. Meanwhile, they're like, child's play, tug of war, like,
on this very
painting.
priceless work of art.
So the most logical sense was just to take the submachine gun and just bash it over the security guard's head until he let go, and then they drove away. And so I think that was, by and large, kind of the thought process there for how you were going to get a Rembrandt out of the Gardner Museum.
Ah, yes. Cool.
The FBI catches that plot.
Yeah.
Because they obviously, before you steal it, you're trying to, like, find the buyer and stuff like that. So the FBI catches that plot, arrests Louis Royce, the man who was going to do that in 1982. And again...
This is smoke bomb guy.
Yes, smoke bomb guy. And then again, 1982, 8 years before the heist at the Gardner Museum, the FBI comes and was like, hey, we want you to know they had all of this information about your security system, and if it wasn't for us and, like, our back channel, like, monitor network, you would have been robbed. You need to change things now.
Yeah.
And the Gardner Museum was essentially like, you've clearly never met the ghost of Isabella Stewart Gardner before.
We would love to.
We would absolutely... We heard. We're going to think about it and get back to you.
Too scared about getting haunted.
Exactly.
Quite honestly.
And so the museum knew about its security, like, deficits.
Yeah.
So did apparently kind of everyone in organized crime around it. I really do think one of the reasons why the museum hadn't been stolen from earlier was because it was like the stuff there was so valuable that it was a bit hard to offload a little bit. Like Miles Connor stole a couple of Wyeths, Wyeth. He's a classic American artist once you know who he is. He's the one that painted that picture of the woman in the field and she's like looking up the hill at like the house. Yeah. He did those paintings. Also, side note, do you know what's so cool about that specific painting?
I have learned so many fun facts about
Art.
various paintings, and I do remember learning something cool about that, but I don't remember what it was.
Based on a real woman
Yes.
who either was born or developed paralysis of the legs, and she continued to live on the farm and wanted to stay there. And how she got around was by literally using her arms and like dragging herself across the farm. And so one of you guys are like, look at that, like struggle, like she needs help, but actually she's just getting ready to go
vibing.
home. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, art history, a lot of it in this episode.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about organized crime,
Aha.
which clearly knew there were weaknesses at the Gardner Museum. And what's so fun about Boston is it's the first time, can't believe I'm about to say this, it's the first time you really start to notice a difference in white people. You got a couple of Italian gangs, a couple of Irish gangs, you know. Those East Coast cities, I feel like the only cities in America that draw any kind of distinction at all. But it's a really big thing if you... I don't know, like, wanted to start an organized crime ring.
Yeah.
You wanted to get all of your cousins and your brothers involved, which makes it all very much a family affair. And that also means you're not really marrying outside of the family. So, while they initially looked at the Irish gang, specifically with its connection to, like, Ireland, maybe they were trying to use it to fund the IRA, Whitey Bulger, things like that.
Yeah.
They, like, pretty quickly turned their focus, not from Irish organized crime in the city, but to the Italian mafias that are in the city at the time. There is this organization called La Cosa Nostra in Boston at the time.
Okay.
It's Italian. Translated, it means our thing or this thing of ours. So they would never be like, you know, the crimes that we do.
Our
Instead,
thing.
they would just be like, you know, our thing, or you know, this thing
The
that
thing
we
that-
share.
That's pretty funny.
You know, I think so gay coded.
Yeah.
So La Cosa Nostra is kind of like public profile enemy number one of the FBI at the time, who has been very clear in press releases that they were going after La Cosa Nostra and were trying to make sure it was incapable of operating crimes at the time. So there's a lot of pressure on this like very well organized and situated Italian mafia situation, which is why a get out of jail free card
Would be great.
might be actually especially useful at that time. But then also internally, there's issues within La Cosa Nostra.
Okay.
Right? Shocking, I know. But an organization that's totally fine with violence and killing has a hard time sticking together when the going gets tough. So essentially, the LCN comes under pressure and people internally are like, I think I could do it better and I'll murder my way to the top if I have to.
This feels like the gang that tried to murder Michael Malloy.
I myself have never personally tried to organize a gang.
Or a crime.
So I don't have a lot of experience on like, what does HR look like? What does payroll look like? Are you a horizontal or more of a vertical structured organization? Right? There's a lot of questions.
It feels
that we
like a
seek to
multi-level
answer.
marketing scheme. Holy shit, are gangs multi-level marketing schemes?
Hold on, let her cook. Go ahead.
I think they are. You get more status
Because
for bringing people in.
If you bring two friends and then they bring two friends, now all of our cousins are in this gang together.
Listen.
Enter the Ferrera Gang. Ferrara. Ferrera Gang. It's this breakaway fraction within La Cosa Nostra. It's a young gun kind of guy who thinks, I can run things better, and I'm going to run things better. They know all about the weaknesses at the Gardner Museum. They're kind of in that part of town. It's kind of like a North Boston mafia group, a South Boston mafia group, and then kind of in the middle, kind of like an Irish coalition.
Okay.
Really
cool.
interesting
A
stuff.
belt?
Listen, as a person who like loves like precincts and like election data analysis, I was like, this is fascinating. Do you know who else would love this?
It's about to make a mildly racist joke.
Oh, about Irish people or Italians?
No, just about how they made the belt buckle, like on a leprechaun.
What?
It's been a long day.
Don't even know but Danny loves maps. I think Danny would
that
love.
was my first. I responded in my head, and then I was like, "No, let the world know."
Okay,
That's
can
my
I
sticker.
need. Sorry, friends. I'm actually kind of sharpening up here. I'm getting like focused on the story. I keep accidentally brushing Maya's foot, and now that I've looked under the table, it is just her empty sandal that I keep accidentally touching and then like apologizing for. I keep doing like the half hand Midwest thing.
I have had no idea what you're talking about.
It's your slipper.
Don't kick it away. I have to put my foot back in it at some point.
Oh, this one? Like you've ever sat normally in this podcast before. This is probably why your hip hurts, to be completely honest.
I'm actually trying to sit like this more often because I'm more used. I instinctively put the left leg up, and I think that actually might be why there's some tightness.
It's a lot
in the
like
right
I was like,
hip.
I've been sleeping on my left side, which is my left hip hurts. But
All right, well.
so the Ferrer King knows about the weaknesses at the Garden Museum, and they're kind of located in South Boston. It's kind of within their territory, and so they have the opportunity, they have the knowledge, and they have the motive because Mr. Ferreira himself has recently been put into prison. And this breakaway faction kind of knows if they have any chance of like kind of taking over and like winning this like violent war that's going on, they need him. So they need to find a way to get him out of jail. He's in jail. Miles Connor at the time also in jail. So it falls to a third person whose name I'm frantically searching for on this sheet. There it is. Mr. Donati, which almost positive it means his name was Bobby Donati. And so I just had to call him Mr. Donati in my notes. Anyways, Mr. Donati has information from Louis Royce on that 1982 attempted burglary.
Okay.
So he's like directly connected to it. And Mr. Donati is out of jail and is friends with Miles Connor and Mr. Ferreira. So here's kind of the theory. Mr. Donati,
Yeah.
hoping to get Mr. Ferreira out of jail. Out of jail.
Yes, the juror.
Trying to get him out of... I've made you seen Jenna Maloney's The Rural Juror.
You've made me seen?
Seen it, yeah. From 30 Rock, Jenna Maloney's The Rural Juror, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, wait, maybe.
The Merman murder, set the birds word alert,
No,
the bird and the
definitely
word.
not.
And then the chorus is, because she's saying rural juror. I've never made you watch that before.
It's ringing a bell. I think you have at least mentioned it.
I've learned
I
the
don't think
opening
you've told
lines
me.
to teach my own students enunciation in the performance. The Lerman murder, set the birds word alert, the bird and the word. Wordemere singing podcast. So, anyways,
What
Mr.
the hell?
I conjured up a spirit.
Yeah, you did while making
Meet
direct
Isabella
eye
Stewart
contact with
Gardner.
me. I didn't like it.
So, Mr. Donati trying to get Mr. Ferreira out of jail, and with help and like kind of in consult with Miles Connor, is potentially going to organize this crime. The thinking was Miles Connor can help them break in, help them identify what art they should grab, and then most importantly, Miles Connor, perhaps the most connected person in Boston at the time when it comes to selling illegal art on the black market.
Crazy.
I know.
Why would he have that connection? That doesn't even make sense. He's a rock star.
People think I'm an art thief because I like robbed from museums, but him just a rock and roll guy. Real, actual, honest to God, Miles Connor quote. I watched the documentary and saw the words come out of his mouth. I paused. It was like when I had to type up winning. I had to pause it and I was like, okay, so we are typing that up. All right.
I love typing quotes from like videos too because you always forget about the fourth word that you're typing and then you have to rewind.
Redo it all.
Yeah.
Okay, so I put in my notes here, and I've totally gone off my roadmap, so now I'm trying to get back to it. Miles Connor's under the belief. I also put his name as Connor Miles in this part of my notes. Not correct.
Your notes were just trying to mess you up.
I'm a little messy right now in this entire thing. I'm going to...
Right now? Or like all the time?
Okay, I'm just going to jump to the paragraph that I want to be in.
Okay,
so like they're in consult with Miles Connor, trying to get Ferreira out of jail. They get two people to break in. They take the art, they give it to Miles Connor, and then it gets hidden within Miles Connor's network, and like they use it to get Mr. Ferreira out of jail. And the linchpin to that entire story is Mr. Donati. And so we just need to get Mr. Donati, and then we can unravel everything, right?
Right, yeah.
He is found, stabbed, shot, beheaded in his own car, like 6 months after the robbery is done.
Oh my god.
And so now there's these theories. Also, I'm sorry, that probably came out of nowhere. I gave you no content warning. There's going to be a lot of stories like that in this episode.
Wait, okay, sorry. Remind me which one Donati is.
He was the one that was the go-between between Ferreira and Miles Connor.
And Miles Connor. And then Ferreira is the subgroup of
The leader of this subgroup.
the leader of the subgroup of
Who needs
the
the get out of jail card. Yes,
whatever. Yeah,
the breakaway
yeah.
faction.
Okay, cool. Cool.
And so what's really difficult now, especially since you can't question him, it's like, was Mr. Donati killed because of his affiliation with this breakaway faction? Or was he killed because what he knew about the night of the robbery? Oh. And you're going to actually see this repeated several times. Shockingly, people who would commit the world's largest art heist also have other enemies in other aspects of their life.
Yeah, because they're connected in high places and don't want to get their hands really dirty. Duh.
So the issue is Mr. Donati, possibly the go-between, and about less than a year after the robbery, his body is found in the trunk of his own car.
Ooh, that's brutal.
Yeah, almost like a message trying to be sent kind of stuff.
No, I don't think so. I think you're reading too much into it.
Grant, you and your conspiracy theories.
I think he just took a nap in the trunk and forgot to open it for air.
And truly lost his head in the process.
Yeah.
Like, that is the
happens.
horrific part. Like, there's plenty of, like, drive-bys or, like, surprise shootings, but the beheading part of that especially
that's rough.
is...
Yeah.
Back to my notes. Still, it is suggested shortly after the robbery at the Gardner that the Ferreira group, then their gang, brings the artwork to Miles Connor's private collection of stolen art. Because of course he has a private collection of stolen art. And what's also super important to remember at the time, since Miles Connor's in jail, someone has to be kind of the, like, curator of this private art collection. And Miles Connor picks a man by the name of Billy
Connor Miles.
Youngworth. You cannot fuck me up like that. So,
Jesus.
the theory is Mr. Donati helps organize the crime, takes the artwork, and immediately, or pretty immediately,
Puts it somewhere.
gives
Yeah.
the artwork to Billy Youngworth. So now we're going to talk about Billy Youngworth for a second. Billy Youngworth was a low-level antique dealer with some loose connections to organized crime. I mean, he knew Miles Connor.
And he's also a low-level antique stealer, so he needs something.
Dealer, not stealer. Sorry for my enunciation. Wasn't good.
Oh, no,
there.
I said dealer.
Oh, okay.
Or I tried to.
He owns this small antique shop and is clearly hemorrhaging money. And so he tried to file an insurance claim that was like, you're never going to guess, but one night someone broke into my antique shop and stole a bunch of priceless rugs from the basement. Here is an insurance claim for it. And the insurance company is like, we're not going to give you a penny because we are positive that crime did not happen. Really sad.
Fair enough.
Billy Youngworth also had a smidge of a cocaine addiction to him.
Yeah, that tracks.
And so, when he was finally arrested for various charges in 1997, Billy Youngworth had an interesting story. He had been selling off Miles Connor's art collection at pennies on the dollar to fund his addiction. And he could return up to 11 of the 13 stolen pieces if they would be willing to acquit him. Obviously, people were quite interested in what Mr. Youngworth had to say.
Yeah. Duh.
Because Miles
also,
Connor...
what happened to the other two? I hope it's a Chinese vase and I hope it shattered somewhere on accident.
Like, immediately?
Yeah, like immediately.
Like Curb Your
Yeah.
Enthusiasm kind of, like,
Shit, fuck, shit, damn it.
we're gonna get blamed for that. We didn't even get to sell it. So one of the things that Miles Connor loved to collect, and now it's the first thing he goes to see when he goes to museums, not to steal them anymore. He kind of, I think has had such a public life. He has to, like, for the most part,
Chill,
live
like the Unabomber did for a while.
I think
yeah.
so, a little bit. Miles Connor loved Japanese swords. Collected a shit ton of Japanese swords.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep,
it was
yep,
so weird because you can see this man's, like, organs at times. Like, he is the palest Bostonian you have ever seen.
Like, you could sell those.
Correct. Well, also, he's also, like, the shortest person interviewed in the series. So he's just, like, the short, pale guy who, like, loved rock and roll and then also Japanese swords. Really weird.
Sounds like someone who would like Japanese swords.
And they're one of the
Not gonna lie.
first things Billy Youngworth sells.
Oh no!
I think in part because it's like a lot easier to sell a Japanese sword than it is to sell like this is the one copy of this painting that exists.
And it was also cut out, not at all like
Right.
what happened in the museum heist.
It's Jesus on the Sea of Galilee has always been in a Walmart plastic frame.
It's actually what's the name of the artist?
You have to give me one more hint.
No, the name of the artist.
Vermeer?
No. Rembrandt, Jesus. It's actually Rembrandt. He heard that you were trying to sell this, and then he installed a remote control shredder at the bottom of the frame, but then it misfired and just cut the entire painting out of the frame.
That's actually what happened to a Banksy photo once, right?
Yeah, that's the joke I'm making.
Okay, cool.
And you know that it sold for like 3 times what it was
After it
actually
got
on
shredded?
auction for?
Yes,
yeah.
100%.
Banksy's fucking hysterical.
I know.
I don't know if he means to be, but he's hysterical.
I hope he's wealthy.
I hope so too.
I don't know if he hopes for that. We're probably misreading Banksy right now.
That's fine. There's an entire subreddit dedicated to like New Yorkers who think they've seen Banksy.
Do you know who would have hated Banksy?
Jesus.
Yes. Well, actually, maybe not. That's a separate episode. Miles Connor, because like, how do you steal a painting on the side of a building? You know?
How do you steal a painting that the artist never even wanted to be sold in the first place?
How do you steal the Declaration of Independence? Nicolas Cage. Okay, so Billy Youngworth is like,
Banksy would absolutely
steal the Declaration of Independence.
A heist on his own artwork. I want to cover that story, Banksy.
I like to think that, like, for all of his work, Banksy's actually at Sotheby's, like, driving up the auction price of his own stuff. Yes. Okay. So Billy Youngworth is like, yes, I have a very interesting story to tell you. Would you like any of that artwork back? And they were like, obviously we would like that back. And law enforcement is like, show us. And he goes, no, you're just going to take it and not get me out of jail or anything. Enter Tom Mashberg, a reporter for the Boston Herald, who becomes the intermediary between 3 groups with very competing interests. Law enforcement, the Gardner Museum, and Billy Youngworth. The Gardner Museum's like, we want the artwork back. We'll give him all of the money. Like, we just want the artwork back. Billy Youngworth is like, I just want out of jail. Like, just let me out of jail and I'll give you all this stuff. And law enforcement wants the artwork back. But the law enforcement's also super cautious about setting a even higher precedent that we will let you out of jail if you steal artwork before we arrest you.
Yeah.
That they are very much aware that, like,
You can't
this
keep
becomes
doing that.
right.
Yeah.
If someone as low level as Billy Youngworth has access to this stuff in order to get out of jail, what are you going to do when like a real serious criminal?
Especially when you have a ghost at a museum
Right.
full of all of this artwork. And so the museum can't install good security.
I bet, even though she was sad, the spirit of Gardner was like, okay, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is a pretty cool event to
Very
be at
funny.
right now.
She was watching whoever stole that painting out of the blue room like, yeah, all right.
I also, a lot of other theories, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay, in my own mind, focused a little bit, because there's a lot
I
of
am
details.
very not
swirling
focused,
around.
so-
No, but that's good. Overcook, undercook.
I looked at the time and was like, holy shit, we've been recording for an hour.
Which is good, because I
That's
went
why
in
I
tonight.
did a double take.
I went in tonight and was like, I mean, a 45-minute part 2 is fine. That's okay. Tom Mashberg is now the go-between between these 3 organizations, right? Obviously, the one that is kind of hardest to deal with is Billy Youngworth and his team, because
he's on coke.
because his only bargaining chip he has illegally, and the other 2 organizations can just take it and give him nothing. You know, right? Like,
Billy.
like the law enforcement's holding a lot of the chips, and Billy
Yeah.
Youngworth has one, and if they find out where that chip is, they get to just take it
Yeah.
from him.
Whoops.
And so Tom Mashberg, the reporter from the Boston Herald, is working with Billy Youngworth's team. And on a summer morning in August 1998, Tom Mashberg is brought to the top floor of a dark warehouse filled with locked containers.
Uh-oh.
There, a man working for Billy Youngworth carefully removed a painting from a storage container. Standing before reporter Tom Mashberg is Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, the most famous piece of the stolen artwork that, like, of the world's largest art heist. The painting was frayed all around the edges from where it had been cut from the frame, and with the help of a flashlight, Mashberg is shown Rembrandt's signature.
Is there a picture of this?
Of what?
Of
the storm on the Sea of Galilee?
Yeah, of this. No, like in this. I feel like I've heard this part of the story before.
We're getting there a little bit.
Okay.
I love your like kind of prophetic dreams on all of it. So,
God, I'm so
Tom Mashberg, how does Tom Mashberg get involved? He gets like a hint or whatever, and he reaches out to Billy Youngworth's team and was like, hey, the thing that you're missing essentially is like credibility, right? Like, give me a story and I can help add to your credibility if the story is real. And the Youngworth's teams goes, we'll give you one step further. How would you like an exclusive on this story? And he's like, I would very much like that.
Yeah.
Which is why I say that before I say this next part. So he sees Rembrandt's Storm on the Sea of Galilee.
Yeah.
He is driven there by a driver that Billy Youngworth's team picks out. He's like picked up in a different part of town and driven to it, shown it, and then driven off and dropped off somewhere else. Okay. And then told very specifically, no story about what you have seen can be published for the next 7 days to give Billy Youngworth's team time to move it.
So, okay, just making sure I get this straight.
Yeah.
Billy Youngworth is the one that has the addiction.
Yes, and...
The katanas.
Yes, and most of Miles Connor's artwork that he hasn't sold off yet.
Most of Miles Connor's, and then somehow also some of these from this Gardner Museum heist.
Not somehow. Mr. Donati
Mr.
probably
Donati
gave it to him.
Okay.
And then it never actually left the Connor collection.
Right, okay.
And so they showed...
Because the Farrar team theoretically was the one that initiated the heist.
Correct.
Mr. Donati gets it to Youngworth's place, but
then Donati's killed, and then like it's hard to get Ferrer out of jail, and they kind of like lose.
It kind of loses traction, and
that's
then
all in 1990, and so now we're into 1997.
Okay.
And Youngworth
1990. Oh, 1990
is when the robbery
1997.
happens.
Okay.
97, Youngworth's like, let's make a deal, right?
Yeah.
And so even though in theory Tom Mashberg knows exactly where at least Storm on the Sea of Galilee is, he agrees to sit on the story for a week. I had, and still kind of have, weird, tough feelings about that.
Yeah.
I guess part of me is like, does Tom Mashberg risk his life to get these paintings, right? Like, if you alert the law enforcement, like, hey, I'm going to get picked up. They're going to bring me to a place. That place is going to have the paintings. You can snatch them. You can get part of this team, stuff like that, right? But also at the same time, like, if law enforcement jumps too soon or Youngworth's team gets spooked, not only does the arts go back into hiding again, but now Youngworth isn't willing to negotiate it on it anymore, and you might die in that process.
And also now you lose your street cred as a journalist,
as an
investigative journalist.
Right, exactly. Who doesn't, in theory, work for the museum or the law enforcement agencies. So, Mashberg is told to wait a week before writing anything in the Boston Herald, so that way the paintings can be moved. And he does do that. He waits a week. And when the article does get published, it goes viral internationally.
Okay.
Not probably a shock that he's like, I have seen these paintings for the first time in 7 years.
7 years, yeah.
Tom Mashberg is now like the go-between between three different groups that are not willing to work with each other, really, because no one really trusts each other. So Mashberg gets to work. Quote, wondering whether paint chips or photos of the works might be proof enough, I asked Youngworth if he could provide them. In mid-October, just before Billy Youngworth is convicted and jailed in a stolen van charge.
Jesus.
A manila envelope containing a roll of 25 negatives and a small vial of paint chips comes into the Herald's possession and was set about to check them. This is 1997. I want to point out, like, we have, it's early days of the internet, but like Google Images, like, it's still clip art for your PowerPoint presentations and stuff.
Yeah.
There are photos of these paintings that essentially they like unrolled them, brought them out of storage, took photos, and sent the photos in.
Oh my God.
But the quality of the pictures is so poor that
you can't tell.
It's inconclusive. They're like, it could be,
but it
could also not be. It wouldn't necessarily be hard to find.
To fake it.
Like, like a replica of some of the stuff, and they're inconclusive.
Sold at Home Goods near you.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But there are paint chips And the paint chips get sent off to the FBI's like paint chip examiner for authenticity around this specific thing.
I love how specific some of the examiners
Well-
are, and like the FBI.
I think it's such a niche field that like the FBI uses him,
Yeah.
but also so do like art museums in general trying to verify it.
Yeah.
His name is Walter C. McCrone, a Chicago scientist who's called upon by all sorts of people to test out paint chips. He helped
wild.
disprove one painting that was super believable because it was supposed to be from the 1700s, but he was like, there's a style of plastic in here that is only brought around in the late 1800s. So while it's
so fucking
old,
cool.
it's not old enough.
I love science.
He's able to call it out.
So sweet.
So McCrone investigates the paint chips that get sold in. He's exposed fake Rembrandts in the past specifically.
Yeah.
So he's worked with this specific artist before. This was a situation in which like parts of chalk just were not produced until later in the 17th century even for these other cases. So McCrone's looking at these chips. McCrone declared the chips he was given to be 350 years old. So exactly the age they need to be.
Oh my god.
Not only the exact age they need to be, but they geographically come from the exact same region Rembrandt and Veneer painted from.
Wow.
His findings produced headlines everywhere, and the chips were handed back over to the FBI and the Gardner Museum, now for their own investigation. 6 weeks later, there's a news release announcing that the chips were, quote, not what they purported to be. Soon to be learned that the Gardner Museum took the chips and compared it to the remaining cutout edges of the Rembrandt. Wrong color. Like the color of the paint chips is not the color used in the Rembrandts. Tom Mashberg, in his article for Vanity Fair in 2015, insists that while that color was not used in the Rembrandts, it was used in the Vermeers.
Oh, so it was like
one of the other ones that was stolen.
Yeah, just
the concert by Vermeer.
the fucking
But not the
museum
Rembrandts.
compared it to the wrong painting.
Now, granted, that was Tom Mashberg publishing that article kind of on his own. Like, this is what I experienced at the time. I don't think he like went to the Gardner for comment or things like that. But what he says in the article, he was like, I think they're the Vermeers instead. And the Gardner's like, Like, that's his retelling of it in Vanity Fair, essentially. It's linked in my show notes. If you disagree with me, go look for it. I've read a lot of sources on this information. Okay, so after that, the press kind of gets tired of being, like, edged throughout this entire process. The photos were inconclusive. The paint chips aren't conclusive enough. Law enforcement is saying to Billy Youngworth at this point, you have 11. If you want to really prove how serious you are, return one. Return the cheapest one that you have, and then we will fully negotiate your release.
Yeah.
And of course, Billy Youngworth's attorney is like, do not fucking release anything that insists that you have stolen art. Right now, you are suggesting you have stolen art. But when you're like, here's the art I stole, that's a crime, babes. Do not give him anything. The name of his attorney is...
Oh my God.
it's coming later. You'll have to remember. Just remember the name Billy Youngworth. Because Billy Youngworth's is like... Billy Youngworth, this is kind of where Billy Youngworth's story ends. He goes to jail.
Yeah.
He does not get killed. Kind of one of the few characters you're going to see in the second half that, like,
Make it out okay.
Well, I mean, doesn't die terribly is maybe the most important way.
Oh, no.
But yeah, basically everyone's like, this whole thing's a hoax. Tom Mashberg loses a pretty significant portion of his reputation because they're like, haha, you fell for a hoax. Like, in a dark storage room in a warehouse all by yourself, not allowed to get too close to
guys,
it.
I saw it.
You saw Rembrandt? Lame. But Miles Connor isn't the only one in the stealing business, especially in Chicago. In the 1980s and 1990s, one business that would become the epicenter of criminal organization was a shop in South Boston called Merlino's TRC Auto Body Shop. I do not know what the TRC stands for. I know Merlino is the last name of the guy who owns it. So Merlino's TRC Auto Body Shop. TRC Auto Body Shop, or just the auto body shop in Boston. it becomes this epicenter in South Boston for crime, as one FBI agent who worked to observe this place said, I never once saw anyone work on a single car at TRC Auto Body Shop.
Nice.
So there's a colorful cast of characters that are there.
Yeah.
Their job is basically like, you want something, we'll go get it for you.
Yeah.
And then it's just like a system of favors and things like that.
Right.
So like the boss, Merlino, pretty well connected. But then below him, like, it's like essentially kind of where the henchmen hang out.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of young guys in their 20s, generic, muscle, can go off them. I mean, obviously they're decent at pulling off thefts and things. They're not getting arrested right away. But this is not like, this isn't where the brains of the operation goes to hang out. It's where the brawns of the operation
They're the neighbors
goes.
that tried to sell you Arbonne when you were young, you know?
What's Arbonne?
Another multi-level marketing.
Okay. So the idea is simple. If you need something, we will get it for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the FBI was already observing TRC Auto Body Shop for other stuff. Remember, it's like an obvious epicenter for gang activity. And they start to pull some things together.
Okay.
Enter a man named George Reisfelder, who was already a local celebrity by the time 1990 rolled around.
Okay.
George Reisfelder spent 16 years in prison for a murder that he was later acquitted for. I want you to take one guess. You're not a political nerd. This would be a great question for Danny. So Danny, this is a question for you. One guess. What Massachusetts area lawyer in the late 1980s helped George Reisfelder get acquitted of the murder? Is this a category at all that you could guess?
No.
John Kerry. 2004.
Holy fuck.
Yeah. Welcome. Next celebrity apprentice. 2004 Democratic presidential candidate for president. Lost a very close election to George W. Bush. Also was Secretary of State. Also was a longtime U.S. Senator from the state of Massachusetts. His political career is launched by acquitting George Reisfelder. I know.
Nice.
That happens in the early 80s, and then Reisfelder's life, shockingly, doesn't turn out better after spending 16 years in our justice system. I don't want to make any excuses for the crimes that George Reisfelder committed,
but
also at the same time, we can't be shocked that a system that does not treat people like human then has people who have a hard time once they get out.
Yeah, reacclimating to being a human.
So it did not seem to help George Reisfelder, the celebrity status, who by 1990 was actively hanging out with mafia friends, even if he himself wasn't maybe in the mafia, but definitely a guilty by association. The FBI believes today, announced in 2015, that George Reisfelder was one of the 2 fake cops that robbed the Gardner Museum.
Oh.
For 2 main reasons. First, he pretty closely matches the description of one of them.
Granted, that's pretty
That
accurate.
hat looks photocopied on to his photo.
It
to
does,
help
but
equal
I was
it
gonna
out.
say it could just be any white man with a longish nose, but there's some distinct
There's a thinness in the face.
the thinness in the face. Yeah,
the
the
eyes are
cheekbones.
back set enough.
Yeah.
And like you put on a fake mustache. That's in my mind
That's him.
pretty credible.
Yeah.
So there's 2 things that lead him to believe that George Reisfelder. First, he matches the description, but he also kind of looks like your average South Bostonian person.
Yeah.
So what's the second piece of evidence that they have connecting George Reisfelder to the crime? Oh yeah, his sister-in-law saw one of the stolen paintings in his apartment.
That'll get you.
Monet's Chez Tortoni, which she in the interview goes, I always like to call it his tortellini photo. And I was like, girlie, you're funny. I bet you've seen some things.
Yeah.
But girlie, you're funny.
You're funny from the trauma.
Exactly.
And I hope you get the therapy you need.
I want to get a half bottle of Franzias or a half box of Franzia in you and just find out what crimes your family has committed. Because I bet you would tell them great, you know?
Also immediately.
Right. So here is what I didn't put his sister-in-law's name into the story, but essentially here's what she said. She remembers one time she's helping him move into a new apartment, and she's helping him frame a photo, and she thinks it's super weird that he has this photo. She calls the frame super foo-foo. And what she means by that, it was like definitely like
super expensive?
no, she meant it kind of like in a vaguely homophobic way. Listen, she's an older lady from South Boston. I'm not making any excuses. I'm just not
It
expecting...
just culturally makes sense.
Yeah,
We've
yeah,
all
yeah, yeah.
seen early seasons of Friends.
I just don't think she's the person leading the like HRC Pride Parade.
Yes.
I don't think she's... I don't know anything about her character. It didn't come across as intentionally hateful. I think it's just her way of saying, it's a little girly, you know?
Yeah.
And the way she describes it, she goes, it's this like very old looking gold frame with like fingerprints in it. And what she means is like the indentations like all the way around it. And she goes, I also remember the photo being super ugly. And I looked at my brother-in-law, George, and I was like, did someone paint this of you? Because I'd be pissed if this was a painting of me. And George, you need to get a better frame. And he's like, no! Do not touch the frame.
Somewhere, the person who constructed that frame lovingly is rolling in their grave. And also the fact that she called an impressionist painting
Monet. It's a Monet.
The Monet ugly is a little iconic purely in its ignorance.
I tell you, it's like, I really do mean this. I think it's how you know it's real, because she wasn't blown away by it. She's like, what crap is this?
I can't even tell what it is.
Listen, I don't know if they chose the actual apartment building he was moving into, but the outside shot was an apartment that had like a air cooler like on the windowsill, you know?
A swamp cooler.
Swamp cooler, thank you.
Yeah.
And that was my first apartment in Denver. I lived in one of those things for 4 years. I'm not saying I'm better than that.
No.
I'm also saying I wouldn't hang a Monet in that apartment.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the best conditions to keep an old painting.
As she said, it just seemed kind of like a weird thing for a bachelor who had spent 16 years in prison to have in his apartment.
Yeah.
Further corroborating that story, George Reisfelder's brother is like, yeah, I saw it in his bedroom. So there's like 2 eyewitnesses who are like, George had it. But then, like, more mystery.
Yeah.
If Billy Youngworth legitimately did have any of those paintings, was the Monet one of 2 that he did not have?
Oh, yeah.
Because he had 11 of the 13. I kind of assumed it was the Gold Eagle Fenial and the Chinese vase, just because they didn't fit the 11 paintings.
Makes
sense.
That he had They're the harder ones to transport.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But also maybe the harder ones to like identify on the naked eye if you don't know what you're looking for.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so, like, did Billy Youngworth ever have it? How, if he doesn't have any of the paintings, like the press declared in the late 90s, how did he get 350-year-old Dutch paint chips to send to the FBI?
They had to be from the other painting.
I do understand a little bit your like love of a true crime.
Yeah.
I kind of love this because like I'm not talking about like one family's personal tragedy.
Yeah.
Like the people who die in it, and death is sad, are like members of organized crime. Mm-hmm. There's not like a person who's like, and they were walking down the street to go volunteer at like the soup kitchen and then they died, right? Like there's not like a legitimately good soul. There's a little bit of like reaping and sowing that happens, especially in this part. And so I'm like a lot more comfortable talking about like the death and stuff, but it's like the Richard Abbott 12/27 robbery from the Blue Room. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But also like Miles Connor's knowledge of it while still being in jail doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. Why does Billy Youngworth have the ability to like take photos of like legitimately good fakes, legitimately just a swing, or like have 3? I don't know today with like a credit card and good standing with the law how I would get 350-year-old Dutch paint chips.
No.
Specifically from that region, you know? And then all of that aside, why on earth would George Reisfelder have one of the Monets, right? Like, if you are a low-level criminal who, like, Loki has a cocaine addiction, why would you have a Monet? Why would you not have sold that Monet for cocaine? And why would the higher-ups let you keep it, which ties you to the robbery, you know? Yeah. Anyways, we can't really ask George about it because...
he's dead.
Yeah, dies of a cocaine overdose within a year of the robbery itself.
Ah, yeah. Well, he had a year with a Monet.
Right.
Hear that, Mo? Yeah, Mrs. Little Lady?
So, George Reisfelder, they believe, is one of the 2 people who matches the description. So did George Reisfelder's good friend, David Turner, who also hung out at TRC Auto Body Shop and looks exactly like the other guy in the photo. If you're looking for two best friends, these two people
They
look
could be in a buddy
very
comedy.
similar to me.
Yeah.
Yes. I want to also name right now, because I'm about to talk about David Turner for a little bit, and I think you're going to really enjoy some of the David Turner conspiracy, that in 2015, the FBI was like, we know exactly the two who did it. It was George Reisfelder and a man by the name of Lenny DiMuzio. This is Lenny and the same photo that they think Lenny was.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, that mustache really does match and track. The photo matches.
The face is very different.
A little bit, yeah. The FBI is like, we're positive it was Lenny. I think there's a chance it was Lenny. I think there's also a pretty decent chance that it was David Turner. They had the name too. I think George Reisfelder, you can lock that answer in.
Yeah.
Also, what makes David Turner really interesting is that he's still alive. Because much like George Reisfelder, Lenny DiMuzio, dead within a year of the robbery as well. That one, murdered.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about David Turner for a second. David Turner hangs out at Merlino's TRC body shop. Looks like one of the one of the suspects. looks like Jesus on the
AKA,
storm of the Sea of Galilee.
The sister-in-law thought he was ugly.
Honestly, yeah, I don't. How do I say it? I mean, I guess they're criminals, so I can just say the truth. None of them are lookers, you know? All of them are like, I would hate to see you at dusk or dawn, you know?
Yeah, it would be a little... But that's anyone that came in the 70s and 80s.
So true as well.
Yeah.
So while DiMuzio and Reisfelder die within a year of the robbery, David Turner would live. He ran around at the same body shop that most people believe organized the crime and was in the same crowd as George and Lenny. And in the late 90s, he was arrested for attempting to rob a money counting facility in Easton, Massachusetts. In Easton, Massachusetts, not Eastern Massachusetts.
I heard Easton, yeah.
Money counting facility, so armored trucks would show up, they'd be unloaded, money would be counted, etc. David Turner gets caught up in that because turns out, oh, surprise, there's an FBI informant in their gang the entire time.
Nice.
An FBI informant who wore a wire, and it's so funny. He wears a wire as they like all go to a diner to like plan the like robbery or whatever. It's just so funny because it's like they're planning a crime, but also like invested in each other's lives.
Yeah.
Like the breakfast comes, and at one point, one of like the mob bosses is like, "Oh yeah, that white toast looks pretty good. You should give me that white toast." And then like a third guy at the table is like, "It's not wheat. You should really only be eating wheat at this point, my man." And it's like, you're worried about your buddy's heart health as you're like, so I have the machine guns. We rob them tomorrow at dawn. We ride, you know? Yeah. And they're also, I will say this, not to give the criminals too much credit, they are, at least in the wired tape that you hear, beyond kind to the waitress.
That's good. She probably got tipped very well.
I think so, probably.
Yeah.
I bet it's kind of one of those situations where she knew immediately who she was serving, and she was like, I remember nothing of this conversation. But they were very kind to her. There wasn't an ounce of like menace in it.
At least.
They're like, yeah, so you got to serve this guy, you know, stuff like that. It was quintessential dad humor.
Yeah.
And then she walks away and they're like, so I think 6 of us can overpower the guards, right? It's like immediately like business pleasure. So David Turner gets caught up in that heist because there's an FBI agent in on it, or an informant in on it the entire time. Who does David Turner hire as his attorney? Martin Leppo, who had represented Billy Youngworth like a year or two earlier.
Yeah, maybe hire a different lawyer.
No, because, I mean, yes and no. Yeah, yes and no. I think Martin Leppo does a good job with what he has, which are like dyed-in-the-wool criminals, and getting them off as many charges as possible.
Fair enough.
As David Turner is getting brought in, Martin Leppo is like, they got you. Hook, line, and sinker, they got you. So Martin Leppo, the attorney for David Turner, says to David, and then says on the record to the documentary, he goes, I turn to Turner and I go, turn over one of those paintings and you walk free. But Turner doesn't have anything. He has nothing that he can turn over to help the FBI.
Man.
However, the FBI hears that David Turner's friend, and maybe like the boss of Merlino's boss, like kind of up the chain a little bit. Because a lot of this chain has actually kind of died in the last couple of years from like a bunch of murders. David Turner's kind of like one of the last of the OGs of the group.
Oh no.
His name, Bobby.
Of course.
Guarenti, but Bobby Guarenti. We're going to call him Guarenti now for everything else, because that's another Bobby. Apparently, Bobby Guarenti is committed to getting David Turner out of jail. And Bobby Guarenti apparently has a painting and is like kind of in rumblings about like, I'll turn this painting over, you get David Turner out. And so there's like kind of that cat and mouse change for a while. But then Guarenti kind of gives up on all of it and doesn't ever turn anything into David Turner to get David Turner out of jail.
Oh my God.
David Turner goes to jail in like 2000. And like no one offers up any paintings to get him out. Bobby Guarenti goes on to live for another 4 years and then dies in 2004. As soon as he dies, the FBI is like, search warrant, search warrant, search warrant. We have a reason to believe, and they're about to liquidate his estate, which is enough for us to like get a search warrant. We think the estate's going to get dissolved. We can search it right now. So they go up there, search everything. At this point, he lives up in Maine.
There.
Of course, nothing's there. But do you know who is there?
Who?
His living widow still. And so they're kind of talking to her, and you know,
like,
they're all
hey,
like New
did
Englanders.
he ever
For reals.
come into a lot of money?
Someone's essentially like rizzing her up, essentially.
Yeah.
And is like, you know, obviously we're up here looking for one thing, those paintings. Man, we're wondering if you like have any information on it. And here's what she has to say. She goes, oh yes. I absolutely remembered the 2 paintings that he had.
So
and I hated them. And I wanted him to get rid of them ASAP. And according to Bobby Guarenti's widow, he does. He doesn't use them to get David Turner out of jail. Instead, he and his wife. Well, yes and no. It's so hard to understand what any of the motivations are for any of this. He and the missus go to Portland, Maine to have dinner with another friend. Enter Robert Gentile. They're all out together. They're having dinner at this like restaurant in Portland. The 4 of them are together. At one point, Gentile and Guarenti, because they're both named Bobby, step outside of the restaurant and go to the parking lot and exchange Guarenti's 2 photos to Gentile. Come back in, finish the meal. Gentile and his wife head south. Guarenti and his wife head north, and that's it. And they're able to just basically do it in the parking lot because no one's looking for the photos. Right? You're just like, oh, these are 2 people like exchanging stuff or whatever. Yeah. You know, it's antique country. It's Maine.
Whatever. Yeah.
And so that's the story that the widow says. She goes, so and so, Robert Gentile has these paintings down in Connecticut. I hated them. There were 2 of them, and they have been gone. But he did have them for a little bit, and we don't anymore. The man you want is Robert Gentile. And the FBI is like, fuck yes. Because the entire time, every interview they have is like, someone knows. And what the FBI kind of resigns himself to a little bit is they're like, someone needs to die. We don't know who it is that needs to die, but someone's putting pressure on someone. Yeah. And that person dies, that pressure changes. Or someone dies, grandkids going through the closet, and they're like, holy shit. The concert by Vermeer or whatever. Yeah. You know, that like someone needs to die, and something that's keeping this information locked is going to come unlocked. Yeah. And they believe Guarenti's death is it. But I want to pause here for a second, because now we're going to go from Maine down to Connecticut to investigate Bobby Gentile. But I want to pause. I even say, okay, pause. My problem with all of this. My problem with this theory is that Bobby Guarenti apparently loved his friend David Turner. Would have done anything to get him out of jail. And if his wife wants him to get rid of the paintings, why doesn't he use them to get David Turner out of jail?
Since he like can't anyway.
Right. I'll get rid of the paintings and I'll get my buddy out of jail, and by turning them in, I might honestly not even be like prosecuted for them. And also Guarenti, still obviously kind of part of organized crime, but he's not the leader of it anymore. Yeah. Right? His like time has kind of passed a little bit too. So it's like, were you saving it for like a chip to like try to earn favor with somebody? Why would you do it? And like at the very least, why don't you anonymously get the cash reward? You know? Why don't you turn them in, get the cash? There's just so many motivations for if Guarenti has them and is done looking at him, and his wife wants them to get rid of them.
There's so many things he could have done.
Right, other than continue to be connected to the crime, and now they're going down to Bobby Gentile. Why give them to Gentile? What advantage does that bring Guarenti? Also, I think Guarenti's a name of one of the teachers in Abbott Elementary. It's the actress who plays Chessie in Parent Trap.
Yes,
and so there's just imagine like her at various points stealing the artwork, and
That's
that character,
iconic.
I would believe that character.
I would follow
do it.
her into war.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Or at least into a kitchen. Like, I would love
Yeah,
to.
yeah, that too. Yeah, that too.
So let's talk about Robert Gentile for a second. The like next person. If you're confused as to what's going on,
Yes.
I don't blame you.
Correct.
Here's the recap. We started off this part of the episode thinking perhaps Miles Connor helped connect one of the Italian gangs to his like art network, and that the night they were stolen, they were brought to his personal collection. The person that organized that, Donati, killed. And then the person that was in charge of it, Billy Youngworth, cocaine, sold a lot of it, and then was like, do you want these paintings? And they were like, yeah, can we have them? And he was like, no. And they were like, okay. And everything kind of falls apart, right?
And he goes to jail.
And so like that's like a whole branch, that's a whole lead, kind of dies. Second whole branch is that it all is centered around Merlino's TRC body shop. And that's honestly a stronger branch. We have people that match the description of the perpetrators. We have people operating the area who have like the system to pull it off. And we have people testifying that they saw the artwork that they like in these people's homes. The wife was like, yes, we used to have them and now they're gone. They think if that's true, they went from TRC's auto body shop to Guarenti's house in Maine to Gentile's house in Connecticut.
Okay, who is the guy that had the Monet?
What part of TRC body shop?
Okay.
George
okay,
Reisfelder.
Okay, so this is a third separate painting from the two.
Honestly, the
don't
FBI
know.
has no idea how many paintings these people might have.
Okay.
They might have all 13. They might have one. They might have none of them. 11 is a weird number for Youngworth to have if they got scattered. Youngworth's also pretty low level on like this whole...
So like Youngworth could be just like absolutely bluffing.
Correct.
Theoretically. Or both of these stories could be true.
Yes.
Or just this one.
Or neither one of these
the
stories
other
could be
one.
true.
Okay,
Because there's a
okay.
whole nother conspiracy that's kind of sad that I'm going to get to towards the end as well. But this one, the one that the FBI has publicly said they believe.
Yeah.
And that they are almost certain about. And the reason why they haven't charged George and Lenny is because they're both dead, because they announced it in 2015. But the FBI, this is the FBI's theory.
Yeah.
That they went to TRC's body shop, and then up to Maine with Guarenti, and then down to Connecticut with Gentile.
Yeah.
So, Robert Gentile brings them down to Connecticut, allegedly. But as one investigator said, Robert Gentile wouldn't know the truth if he tripped over it. Now, the FBI is
Goddamn.
working on trying to get Gentile. They're like, okay, we just found out that the artwork is with Gentile instead. We now need to have a reason to, like, trip him up, right? Like, they had always kind of wanted to capture him, but in the same way, like, oh, we have a list of criminals. We'd love to get one day. Now it's like, we got to run an operation on Gentile to try to get him. And they do. Gentile hosts his like own like Italian night with some of his old like crime friends.
That's cute.
They kind of come, they cook. I think it's spaghetti and meatballs, and
As
they
they
drink
should,
wine,
yeah.
and they just like chat forever and ever.
Fuck yeah.
And at one point, another FBI informant in there asks Gentile about the paintings,
Yeah.
and Gentile's like, "Oh, I couldn't talk about any of that stuff." Blah 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 blah. But then the very next conversation Gentile has, still being recorded.
Yeah.
Is the one that gets him sent to jail.
Oh no.
Gentiles trafficking prescription drugs.
Oh.
And you know how the FBI is like, got him. All right, that's it. That's all we needed. It doesn't matter if it's not art related.
Yeah,
They
get
nab
him.
him.
Yeah.
They nab him, immediately search a warrant for his home in Connecticut.
Okay.
And it's like, word's going out in the art museum. They're there. They know they're there. They've tracked it all. Gentile has him at his home in Connecticut. They bring in ground piercing radar to like search his property. And they tear it apart.
As they should.
At one point, Gentile's lawyer shows up, who's this absolutely low-key kind of hot, like young gun lawyer who's like, I mean, he has to be oily. Like just the way he presents himself and stuff. Everyone deserves a criminal defense attorney. Absolutely they do, right? But also at the same time, you look at this man and I'm like, I don't know. You're so screwy you could uncork a wine bottle, you know? So they tear apart Gentile's house.
Yes.
Two things become pretty clear right away.
Okay.
This is a man who built this house to hide shit. And the paintings aren't there.
Okay.
there's like a shed in the back with like secret holes in the ground. They go back at least 3 or 4 times and find new hiding spaces every single time they are back at Gentiles. Cannot find the paintings.
I fucking love that.
Yes, and so there's a couple of different things. So first, on the initial charge, when they bring Gentile in and they're kind of talking to him a little bit, his lawyer is in the room as like 15 FBI agents are questioning him, and they have Gentile hooked up to a polygraph lie detector test, which is kind of, I think, pseudoscience, but it adds to the drama.
Yeah.
And they're like, have you ever seen any of these photos? And they lay them all out. And he goes, oh yeah, I've seen that one. And they go, where did you see it? And he goes, so I'm at a party in Maine at this guy Garenti's house. And his drunk wife stumbles into the room that we're all drinking in and whips it out from her bra and goes, ain't this cool? And shoves it back in and walks to a different room. And like all the FBI agents like shuffle out and they're like, and his lawyer goes, why would you give up that information like that? And he goes, oh, I'm lying. And he goes, don't do that anymore. You're being questioned by the FBI.
Men will literally intentionally lie to the FBI and incriminate themselves instead of go to therapy.
I mean, I'm sure Gentile figured it out that it's Garenti's wife that like leads them to him.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's necessarily upset about it, but I don't think he loves the fact.
Yeah, he's like,
either.
I'll just fuck with her.
Right. Because before he was like kind of like not a low level criminal, but no one really liked him in Connecticut. But whatever, he's just a guy out in Connecticut.
Yeah.
They'll nab him if they can, and then. When Garenti's widow is like, he has the paintings, the FBI's like, we gotta get him.
Yeah.
So obviously the polygraph comes back, and according to what they shared in the documentary, the polygraph is like, there is a 1% chance he was telling the truth at any point in today's. Like, they're like, he just lied all the time. It was everything. He was one of those people.
It's kind of really funny.
It also helps explain why the like Mrs. Garenti joke works so well there.
Yeah.
He's basically saying to his lawyer, I haven't been telling the truth the entire time.
Oh, you think any of this was true?
Exactly. Listen, if I'm not going to have a little fun, what am I even doing here?
Listen,
you know?
if we were in an alternate reality and Lee got into art heist, this would be Lee.
I'm not entirely convinced Lee isn't into art heist. In certain aspects, a bit of a Venn diagram. There's a little bit of Miles Connor in Lee, I think.
He has some great taste in art.
The phrase, people think I'm an art thief because I robbed some museums, but I'm just a rock and roll guy, is a phrase Lee would say and then grab 2 spicy popcorn. Like,
Yes.
Okay, so Gentile story now takes a little bit of a twist, which is really interesting. Obviously, he gets put in jail for trafficking prescription drugs. And he's already a pretty old man by the time he gets put into jail.
Yeah.
We jump back into the story. A couple years after getting jailed, Gentile's lawyer is called back to the prison they're holding Gentile.
That lawyer must hate getting calls.
I actually think
fucking client.
No. Because the way he talks about it, the way he starts off this story, the lawyer, the way he starts off this story in the documentary is so funny. I'm sitting there, it's like 11 p.m. at night, I'm like rapt, because I'm like, they're going to find something, right? Like, it's I know it's history's mysteries, but they're going to find something, right?
Yeah.
And the lawyer goes, I get a call, where was I? I'm golfing somewhere. Anyways, they call me, they say Gentile's dying.
So it's just every day.
So he reports to the prison, and I mean, Gentile's still in prison, and so they can control who has access to him. And Gentile's the only one they're letting in. Sorry, Gentile's lawyer is the only one they're letting in to see Gentile. And the lawyer comes to him, and like, he does not look good. He is dying. And his lawyer says this about Robert Gentile. He says he might have been a crooked, wicked man who did various illegal things. Yeah. But that man loved his wife, who was still alive at their home where they lived together. And so he looks at him. I want to make sure I get this next part right. He goes, I look at him on his deathbed. And Robert Gentile looks at me and he goes, how's it looking, man? And his lawyer goes, you're dying, Robert. You're dying. And then there's this moment of silence, and he goes, if you can give me anything about those paintings, where they might have been next, if you ever had them, whatever. If you can give me anything about those paintings, You can be back home in your bed next to your wife tonight. I can make that happen. You can die next to your wife. And Gentile looks at his lawyer and goes, but there ain't no Peytons.
Shut the fuck up.
And now do you know what the second shocking thing
No,
that happens
what?
that night?
He only had the vase.
He gets better.
He's like, well, fuck it. If that's my only other option.
Are they killing me to get those bags?
Revival potion.
And that's
like,
my favorite shit to do on this podcast is I slow down my voice and I make like this really intense eye contact with you and I tell you this like tragic thing that like I wordsmithed to the nth degree. And I'm like, and then he gets
Nothing
released
happens.
from jail 2 years later.
Are you serious?
Dead serious. He lives long enough to get released from jail.
Motherfucker.
I mean, it was just prescription drug trafficking. I don't mean just, but it's not like they give him a life sentence for it.
What the fuck?
And so in 2019, we're now up to 2019.
Holy shit!
Robert Gentile is released from prison after serving his term. 2 years later, in 2021, Robert Gentile passes away.
No.
None of the paintings turn up. And the FBI believes that is because as soon as Robert Gentile got them, he gave them to the Philadelphia Mafia.
I would.
I wouldn't hold on to them if everyone wants them.
Yeah, I would either display them very prominently in my home,
Right.
or get them away from me as quickly as humanly possible.
Yes. So maybe that's exactly what Robert Gentile did. All I know is that he didn't need to trade off any paintings in order to see his wife again.
He was like, I'll be fine.
Also, I guess it's fair to say there's a decent chance that Robert Gentile legitimately never had them and that the Guarenti family hated him so much they were willing to, after Robert Guarenti was dead, throw suspicion on him
up.
Because the very first thing that the documentary says about Robert Gentile is that truly and essentially no one likes him.
Aww.
But that's not true. He has a wife.
His wife likes him?
Right. And
I think.
a group of Italians come over and eats at his house and drinks his wine. But also, it doesn't seem like a tight group because they let an FBI informant in one time. I mean, that's not you know that it's an informant right away, but you know.
I mean, yeah. There should have been signs.
So 2019, Robert Gentile is released from prison. Also in 2019, David Turner is released from prison.
Wait, remind me which one David Turner is.
He is, so there are three people who might have done the robbery.
Oh, he's
George
one of them.
Reiselder, we
Okay.
know for sure.
For sure. And then the other
FBI
two.
named Lenny, but there's always been suspicion about David Turner.
being
And
the
David
other one.
Turner is the only one that lives past 1991.
Right. Okay.
So David Turner, and this was the guy in 97 who got thrown into jail for trying to rob that money counting facility.
Right. Oh my God, there's so many people in this
Right,
story.
a lot of crimes
Yeah.
too. But here's what you're going to love even more.
Okay.
So in 2019, David Turner is released from prison. And the FBI web of assumed criminals behind the Gardner robbery, he's the only one still alive today
Holy
that might have had
shit.
direct connection to it, other than Miles Connor, but we knew he wasn't physically there because he was in jail.
Yeah, like he might have info, but he
Right.
wasn't involved.
David Turner was arrested in 1999 for the attempted robbery of the money counting facility. At the time, he was sentenced to 38 years in prison
God.
and let out in 2019. His sentence was officially reduced by the FBI, but the agency has never publicly disclosed why.
Shut up!
Now, 34 years since the robbery at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, an art heist that stole $500 million worth of art, David Turner is the last living person with insider information about what exactly occurred that night. Or he's not. And someone, somewhere knows more, like where to hide a painting. And that's it for the official information I have to present to you.
People that reportedly have seen the paintings. There's the reporter that
Tom
theoretically
Mashberg.
that saw them in the warehouse.
Who thinks he sees him in 1997.
1997, and then there's Reisfelder, right, that had the Monet
Correct.
theoretically.
But that would have been 1991 because he dies that year.
Okay. Okay, so 19, that one's early.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is these two. What are their names? It's like,
Garenti and Gentile.
yeah, Garenti is the one that theoretically had the two. His wife wanted him to
Correct.
get rid of them.
Up in Maine.
Yeah, up in Maine. But what year was that?
We're guessing between 99 and 2004.
Okay,
after
so that was
David Turner was
after.
arrested, but before he dies in 2004.
And that would be after the journalist reportedly sees.
Then with Billy Youngworth.
Yes.
Right. So in theory, honestly, all of them could be somewhat culpable.
Yeah.
The TRC Auto Body Shop guys could be the first ones that collect it, and then with Donati, gets it to Miles Connor's facility, where it then falls under the care of Billy Youngworth, who, through his cocaine addiction, sells a bunch of the stuff to people who know it's still in Boston, like Bobby Garenti, who maybe grabs two and then gives it to Bobby Gentile. That's one of the theories. And a theory that kind of loops everyone in at one point or another with it all. There's a different theory entirely, though. And I forget who said this. I believe it's Miles Connor's friend.
Okay.
The one who managed Frank Sinatra
Right,
and
yeah,
Dionne
the
Warwick.
lawyer.
And he apparently was told this story by somebody.
Yeah.
But for obvious reasons doesn't give off a lot of names.
Oh, yeah.
According,
like us on the podcast.
Right, exactly. When we're saying the embarrassing things our dearly beloved have done. According to Miles Connor's friend, who's well connected and helped arrange that initial Rembrandt trade for Miles Connor back in like the 80s. Here's what he thinks happened that night. Actually, here's what he has been told has happened that night. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum is robbed. That night, they are taken out of the city of Boston and brought to New York to be sold to the people who have officially organized and orchestrated it. But something goes wrong. The delivery arrives, and the next chain of things falls apart. And so New York's like, we don't want these.
Yeah.
We have nothing to do with them. And what he was told is that all 13 are burned that night.
Holy shit.
And that none of them have existed, essentially since the morning of Sunday, St. Patrick's Day, March 19th, 1990. Which means Tom Mashberg saw a convincing fake. And that, in fact, Tom Mashberg might have seen that convincing fake from the Billy Youngworth collection
and that could
was like
explain...
added elsewhere, and that those then went up to Garenti and Gentile.
That could also explain the paint chips, theoretically, if someone was able to salvage them.
Right.
But then how did that one guy have the Monet?
Right.
Huh.
And also, like, I don't think you can get paint chips from ash if you were burning them.
No, I mean, but, like, it's not going to burn evenly, right? Like, if someone is desperate and wants
like, have
them,
one.
yeah,
or
they
you
can...
say, got it, boss, we burn them all, and you don't.
Yeah.
For me, what's so curious, the detail of this part that I focus on so much, is how does Billy Youngworth get 350-year-old paint chips? I have, in my mind, it makes a lot of sense that Billy Youngworth, who fashioned himself an amateur antique dealer, ends up purchasing really convincing fakes of these paintings.
Right.
And then once he realizes they're fakes, sells the fakes to Garenti and Gentile, like after they're not going to get them out, which is also why Billy Youngworth isn't willing to produce actual
one,
art
because it's not real.
He knows they're not real. And even though he knows the FBI will know they're not real, Garenti and Gentile probably don't have the same kind of up to snuff. So he can sell it to them or get rid of them somehow. I think there's like a possible connection there to all of it. But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely remember reading that Vanity Fair article from MASH.
How much of this case did you know before I started to do the episode?
Honestly, none of it, aside from that bit about seeing the one painting in the warehouse.
Oh, okay.
Because I had read that, I think, in my art history class.
Sure.
I feel like I had seen the pictures too, but maybe I'm just like hallucinating that. But damn.
There's so many different interesting avenues to push in all of this. Let's say that the FBI is correct that Garenti had them at one point. That the FBI is correct that like George Reisfelder and Lenny DiMuzio got them. Eventually they end up in Garenti's hands, who then brings them to Gentile, and then Gentile gets them to the Philadelphia Mafia. What does the Philadelphia Mafia do with them? Like, the question still remains, what do you do with them?
I hope at least one of them gets found.
Yes.
Just for the drama.
Because you forgot to get it.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. I also hope, you know that prank, like releasing 3 oiled pigs and labeling them 1, 2, 4?
Correct.
I feel like it would have that kind of effect of like, well, it's around here somewhere.
Everyone look where you're standing right now.
Yeah.
Is it below you?
Yeah.
Well, because the question too is, I mean, especially with the Rembrandts and Vermeers, these are delicate paintings
Yeah.
that museums spend thousands of dollars every year restoring, but then also just preserving and handling.
Yeah.
And even organized crime units that know their value are going to struggle to maintain them and handle them properly. So if you have a stolen asset that's worth potentially $10 million and is deteriorating rapidly, what is your plan with it? Like, are you still holding out for it, like, just in case? Because, like, a get out of jail free card or $10 million, even for organized crime, doesn't feel like something to, like, thumb your nose at, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, but if they're not deteriorating, then it's an investment that you're pumping thousands into, unless, of course, they're not even in the U.S. anymore.
That's my theory.
Yeah.
Or that's my thought, is that they made their way to, like, South America or back to Europe or something like that.
I think I think there's a decent chance they're in Russia. I'm not going to lie. That, like,
fair,
some Russian oligarch who, through New York, has some connections to organized crime in America. Imagine, though, how prophetic this... I gotta stop using the word prophetic. But imagine how prophetic this podcast is if our episodes start to link things together. Like, did you know Mary Shelley and Anne Martin had an affair? Like, if we just start to accidentally connect things together. You were right. James Buchanan was gay, but with Lincoln, not with whatever his name was. Van Ryder or whatever. Like, I think it would be... And you know who officiated the wedding? William Swan.
Well, people think that it was actually Houdini.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
One of his earliest acts.
Yeah.
And, of course, the witness was his mother. Who he loved and brought everywhere.
Who was very confused during the whole ceremony.
Exactly. Not like in a homophobic way, just kind of like, where am I?
Yeah.
And why is it all in English? I only speak Hungarian. Okay.
We're good.
So, final thoughts section.
Yes.
And I'm feeling really good about the length of this episode. I think in terms of actual content, just a little over an hour.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get
like
it to you hot and fresh, Little Caesar style.
Never say those words in that order again.
You're right. I shouldn't, but I probably now will.
Yeah, I know. I've done the wrong thing. I've incentivized you.
You really could be a teacher, because you realize that, and then the next day you're like, I have to do the exact opposite when managing them. Okay, final thoughts. This is a robbery director, Colin. I swear to God, it's Barnacle. That's an RN. BARNICLE.
That feels like Barnacle.
Colin Barnacle told Town and Country's magazine that, quote, researching the case was like learning the game of chess. The more you know about it, the more options you see.
Dude, that's how the mafia is, though. It's so confusing. The Peaky fucking blinders. That was a horrible accent. Don't come at me.
No one has ever come at you, and we love all of your accent work, which is funny because I'm the one
like,
that
objectively.
teaches. Oh, no, objectively. But never for your accents.
That wasn't a sign. YouTube, that wasn't a sign to come at me.
She only wants praise, not feedback.
Yes, truly. Pavlov's dog.
Second thought. The award is huge, or you could get out of jail. If you have it, you must not want the money or not need such a big favor.
Yeah.
Other investigators hope that it will just take a couple of deaths and that suddenly someone's cleaning out Grandpa's basement, whatever, and they're going to find it.
Yeah.
The crowd that says we will never see them again are convinced they are in a private collection of some billionaire or were sold off to fund international terrorism.
I forgot about that one.
Here's my theory. I don't even know if I believe this theory anymore. I just remember writing it at the end of my initial information gathering.
Right.
Here's my theory that I apparently put into words like 2 weeks ago. First, I don't think Richard Abbott had anything to do with it. I think he worked a boring job where nothing happened, and that ended up not being true the night of the crime. I also don't think Billy Youngworth had the paintings, or at least not the full set. And if he did, they were taken from him when it became clear how much proof the police would need in order to let him out. Second, I think that whoever has them doesn't need the money, that they might want the powerful bargaining chip, but I think that they went somewhere outside of the U.S., somewhere that people wouldn't realize or know that they've been stolen and belongs in some person's grand estate. For that reason, I don't think they were sent to Ireland to help fund the IRA, although there have been like a dozen sightings of them in Dublin. Didn't even have time to get into that. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, nothing official, but people were like, oh, I saw it.
I saw that.
Yeah.
It's hard because some of those paintings are so famous that,
Right.
like, How do you know what's real and what's not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
My very last paragraph of the whole episode. I do think the paintings are important enough that they made their way up the food chain very fast, and whatever organized crime group ended up snatching them. I don't think a middle manager in an organized crime ring is holding on to these things. I think that they went out of Boston pretty quickly after the robbery.
Here's my hope is that they did end up in some like, not Youngfield, Ricefeld's type home where like he has it for some strange fucking reason and no one really knows, and then it just gets like passed through the generations and eventually someone dies and it's like a you or me that's going through the assets and is like, well, this is a fucking painting. I'm gonna donate
Antique Roadshow.
I was literally.
Oh shit!
I was thinking either it gets donated to Goodwill and it's like sitting on a shelf somewhere in a like crusty thrift store consignment store somewhere. Like definitely not a
Someone
local.
removes the picture because they just want the frame.
How do you think I got this gallery wall, guys? Yeah, something like that, or yeah, it goes to an Antique Roadshow. It like gets picked to be on TV, and then the person appraising it is like, oh no, we have to cut all of this.
Shut it down. Close all the doors right now.
Immediately.
Some person in a cardigan comes over. Ma'am, you're gonna have to step aside with me for a second. As an usher, I actually think that would be such a good opening 5 minutes to like an A24 film.
Yeah.
That's a good thing neither one of us are screenwriters because I feel like we're just constantly coming up with award-winning ideas.
It would be great.
Yeah.
We could have won like 15 awards by now.
That'll be what we do. That'll be
Yeah.
that's our next
down.
act.
Yeah.
Dope. Awesome.
Yeah.
I think 52
Cool.
was good enough. Yeah. I'm kidding. I am kidding. We used to make those jokes around episodes 20 to 30, and you guys very lovingly wrote in panicked. Like,
several times. Saying,
don't you
please
ever stop recording.
Stop.
We were like,
Oh, it was a joke.
It was the first joke. We were like, they don't think that one's funny. Gotcha.
They find that as a threat.
No, but for reals, and I guess I'm saying this as much to you as I am anybody else, I have, as I enter spring and speech and debate season ends and I can focus on other things than like the immediate now of the job, I am incredibly grateful for like this chance to like read and to learn and to research and like everyone's like, I'm so grateful for how much work you guys do. And there are times when it's like 11:30 and you're trying to get all your thoughts down and you're like, I know I have the most supportive partner in the world, but if I ask to move this recording date, then I have personally failed. So I just gotta slam through this research right now. Where it's like in those moments where you're not like, this isn't the top of my gratitude list.
Yeah.
But it's just been really fun and interesting.
It's been so, I enjoy it because I feel like I have way more, not merit. What's the word I'm looking for? Reason to believe somebody. I don't know.
Knowledge?
Yeah, knowledge to back up my random ass tangents. I'm gonna stop talking now.
No, I think I hear what you're saying. And the reason why you're having a hard time putting it together is because what you're trying to say is, I feel like a white man now, which is when I start to share a story, it's like, no, guys, I know this is interesting.
No. What you don't understand about Patty Hearst.
Exactly. Sorry, woman, if you could, thank you. I've done some research on this.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think this rose quite to the same level as Patty Hearst, but...
No, it was good.
Sure.
I enjoyed it.
I also, like, while a lot of my witnesses had guns, not a lot of them got 2 documentaries and a book, so there was, like, a lot of inferring that went on. You just did such a good job of, like, timelining it all.
Patty Hearst was just... That was my... What words am I looking for?
Bobby pin. You're playing with the 32 bobby pins in front of you.
Yeah. No, it was my what's the last big work. What's the word for that?
Your masterpiece?
No, there's
Your thesis?
I want to say Monte Cristo, and that's not right. My fuck.
Magnum opus.
There it is. Jesus Christ.
Isn't Monte Cristo a sandwich that comes with a white sauce?
Monte Cristo?
Yeah.
Like Count of Monte Cristo?
Oh, I'm also pretty sure it's a sandwich. It's your magnum opus. Go ahead.
Magnum opus. That's the end of that sentence because clearly I can't formulate sentences right now. Jesus Christ.
Monte Cristo sandwich. Absolutely right. Yeah, and it comes with a white sauce. It's fried.
Oh, fun.
A little bit of, maybe not a white sauce, but there's a powdered sugar.
Sounds good.
It's
I guess.
really good.
Yeah. I'd eat it.
Well, this has been fun. I've done the speech the last couple times. Would you like to do the speech this time?
You just saw me fail to come up with like 3 words in a row.
This is the part that was memorized, though.
Yeah, sure. If you like us, well, I laughed.
Your hands like, what the fuck?
You're tired and like clap your hands. If you like what you see and you want to connect with us more, we're on social media at While I Laughed. And if you want to email us, please, we're at While I Laughed podcast@gmail.com. And then if you want more of us, thank you, Barbie. We're While I Laughed podcast on Patreon.
And if you ever want to see the visual bits sometimes,
We're on YouTube.
Subscribe to us on YouTube.
Yeah.
You can subscribe to us on multiple platforms. Hot tip, just learned it. You should do it. I've known it for a while. You don't trust me sometimes. And I know it's because I can't be trusted, but still
That
it's
wasn't
hurtful.
a glance of I can't believe you didn't know that, Grant. That was a glance of Dad, you're making a dumb joke.
That's
Shut up.
such a similar look, though. You can understand why I was confused.
Okay, we'll take him the same way. Offensive a little bit.
And thank you for joining us
Okay, goodbye.
this beautiful evening. Or I guess commute. I don't know.
I don't know.
Bye.
Work morning. Okay, bye.